Indy. The very name conjures up an image of speed, but also an image of men, of all the men who have driven here since 1911, and an image of this man, the man who will win today. This is the meeting at the summit of automobile racing. The cars themselves have been proven on test tracks and in qualifying here at Indy, the ultimate product of the automotive science. But the man guides the car. The man risks his life, and one man, this man, will win today. Behind him will be his crew, encouraging their man all the way. The man knows that the car and the crew are vital, but he knows that he, the professional, will make the difference in the end. He's conscious of the history, of the memories that Indy is made of. He will have racing luck because he knows that one sudden incident on the track, one broken part in the car, or one split-second lapse in his brain, and the dream will be ended. He must concentrate totally when the race is on, peering into each of the four corners 200 times. The man who will win this day may be old or young, a father or his son, an American or a foreign visitor. This man will overcome adversity and 32 other drivers, and his dream will come true. Victory will be his, and the spoils and the joy that go with it. He'll be the winner of the 1987 Indianapolis 500, and the coming hours will answer the question that 400,000 and more have gathered to find out. Who is he? ABC Sports presents live from the Indianapolis Motor Speedway in Indianapolis, Indiana, the 1987 running of the Indianapolis 500. This ABC Sports exclusive is brought to you by Champion Spark Plug Company, by Ice Blue Aqua Velva, because there's something about an Ice Blue Aqua Velva, man. By Sears, where there's more for your life. And by Chevy, the heartbeat of America, today's Chevrolet. It's almost like a dream sequence, but it's live. You're looking down from the Goodyear blimp at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway on a beautiful morning in May. Below you is the race course, 2.5 miles long, large enough that there's a 9-hole golf course in the infield. On the periphery of the track are grandstands in the corners and on the home straightaway, stands with seats for more than 250,000 people. Including the crowd in the infield, an estimated some 400,000 citizens of the Republic are gathered here all together. They've come to watch 33 brave men do battle for the 71st Indianapolis 500 championship. Right now, the car sits still in the starting grid, surrounded by thousands of the curious who are fortunate enough to have pit passes. The drivers, well, they still wait in the wings like stars of the theater, poised for a dramatic entrance. It's time for an American ritual of the Memorial Day weekend. Each person comes for his or her own reason, some simply for a happening, others for the status of a celebrity suite, most just fans of automobile racing, but all not as ghouls in search of accidents as some people contend, but as human beings wanting to see others of their species conquer the dark forces and emerge with their hand in the air. So it's Indy, once again, 1987 version. I'm Jim McKay reporting from the starting grid. Behind me, the car of Bobby Rahal, who won this race last year. He's number 1. I'll be with you on and off until the race is done today, and standing by ready to do the play-by-play again this year, my ABC Sports colleague Jim Lampley. He's up in the booth, along with our expert analysts Sam Posey and Bobby Unser. Well, here we are, continuing our odyssey of speed in the month of May. On the first Saturday, we're at the Kentucky Derby. Last week at the Preakness in Baltimore. 13 days from now, the Belmont in New York, with Ali Sheba going for that Triple Crown. But today, well, of course, it's a different kind of speed, about 10 times as fast, and the horsepower is contained in engines instead of in flesh and blood. But the problems for the drivers are pretty much the same as for the jockeys, to bring the car and themselves home safely, and they hope first. What an interesting lineup we have this year. Very varied. We have 9 former champions in the field. We have 6 rookies. We have 5 grandfathers driving today, including Dick Simon, who is the oldest man ever to drive here. He's 53. We have 2 father and son combinations, the Unsers and the Andrettis. And we have a man from Colombia, South America, Roberto Guerrero, who just might win this race today. With all that, the focus this week, and this month really, has been on one man. From Nazareth, Pennsylvania, Mario Andretti. He won the pole position 20 years after he won that position for the first time. He's 47. Remember 1969? This was Mario winning and earning a kiss from the owner, Andy Granatelli. Let's go to one of our pit reporters now in the garage area, Jack Arute with Mario.
Well, Jim, some things have changed. Of course, no longer is Mario Andretti driving for Andy Granatelli, but one thing hasn't. Since then, you haven't won an Indianapolis 500. What are your thoughts right now, Mario? Do you have the ability, the capabilities to score your second victory today?
I think we do. I think the team has definitely got everything that's needed to be able to get the job done. I think that the Chevy engine is capable of going. I'm ready to go. Lady Luck's smiling us a little bit, and maybe we'll have a good day.
Momentum. It seems to be going your way all month long. You sat on the pole. You won the pit crew contest. You guys are really pumped up.
Well, this is like I said, that's testimony of the team really being ready for the job. And I think during the whole month we worked very hard. Others have as well. But as I said, we never sat back and just became complacent because we were going well. It just we worked hard, and we worked hard every minute of the way, and from a preparation standpoint, I think we couldn't have done any more. We're ready to go, and I hope it's enough.
Well, who knows? It may very well be enough to put him in victory lane for the second time in his career. Jim?
Okay, Gasoline Alley doesn't look like it used to. It used to be the old wooden garages. Now it's a concrete village, and much more international, more sophisticated encampments for most of the drivers. Right now, another of our pit reporters, Al Troutwig, is standing by there.
Jim, as you can see, Paul Newman, one of the supporters of the Mario Andretti Newman Haas team, is making his way through the crowd, a large crowd, as a matter of fact, in this mobile home encampment. You see the monetary commitment on the part of Carl Haas and Paul Newman and the people who support the Newman Haas racing team is more than cars and nuts and bolts. It's $500,000 for a mobile home like this, for people to come around and mill about and talk about the race ahead. As you can see from this vantage point, the race is a catered affair. Inside, these buses are rather special, as we'll see. Come on inside the bus. Paul Newman was sitting in here for quite a long time. He talked with Mario for just a short moment. It has everything you could possibly hope to have, and it'll move from this race to the next and the next. But this is quite a pleasant place to watch the race. Oh, and by the way, even though the race is blacked out in Indianapolis, there's a satellite dish to bring in our feed, so you never even have to leave. Back to you.
All right. Luxury suites, well, they're right there in turn 4. They were built a few years ago. It's become the thing, really, at sporting events in America. We're at the Indianapolis 500 this time, though, and we'll be back. They seem to be drawn to this race like lemmings to the sea, the strange assemblage who camp out along 16th Street for days preceding the 500, and that was 16th Street you were looking at then, and the status conscious who managed to be invited to those suites on turn 2, where the champagne and the hors d'oeuvres are as carefully prepared as the race cars that flash below. Well, last year, the winner was a buttoned-down businessman who pays more attention to his golf game than to a high life that could be his. This was Bobby Rahal from Mid-America, Columbus, Ohio. Our pit reporter, Jerry Gappins, is with the defending champion right now. Jerry?
Bobby Rahal, the year has gone a full circle almost now since that victory last year, and you got to go out and try to do it again. What's going to be the key to that repeat this year?
Well, obviously we got to get it to the end. Reliability first off, but I think the big thing is just, you know, let the race sort itself out. Don't get into any trouble, and just drive our own race, see where we end up, and hopefully if we have to make changes during the car or during the race on the car, that we can do that and have a really good car right at the end.
Most years, Bobby, the defending champion, comes back as a heavy favorite. This year, Mario Andretti has stolen the headlines a little bit. Does that bother you?
No, not at all. You know, I think we've been here a long time. There's been a lot of events leading up to the big event, or the reason really why we're here. And you know, it's a long race. Anything can happen. So what's happened all month is just a prelude to today. And you know, he's been running tough, but I think we can do just fine.
We lost car owner Jim Truman a year ago. It was a very emotional victory. Will you be thinking about him at all when you strap into the machine today?
Oh, yeah. I think about him every day, and this day is no different than any other. So, yeah, we always think of Jim and wished he was here with us, but he's here in spirit, definitely.
Okay, your defending champion, Jim McKay, is ready to go out and try to repeat, become the first repeater since Al Unser in 1970 and 71. Now back to you.
Okay, of course, Jim Truman was the owner of Bobby Rahol's car. He was very close to him, and he died just 11 days after Bobby won this race last year. As I said, we're in the pit area here, and it's hard to describe it. All this began at 6 o'clock this morning when the gates opened. It's more than a race, it's a whole day here. When we arrived at 10 minutes to 7, some people, a few, but some people were already sitting in their assigned seats in the grandstand. Since then, they've been listening to the Purdue University Marching Band and Ohio State Band came by a while ago. A great deal of pageantry here, and this is the most beautiful day that I can remember. More than that, I talked to Sam Hanks, who has driven and been here for heaven knows how many years. He said he cannot remember a day as beautiful as this for the running of the Indianapolis 500. Temperature is 66 degrees. There's no wind. Should be good for the engines and for everybody else. Let's take a look at one of the cars now. Not the cars up on the first row at this moment, but here is car number 87. That is the car of Steve Chassie. We wanted to find out about this young man because he's an interesting person, and we talked not to him, but to his 8-year-old son, Blaine, and here's what Blaine had to say.
Hi, I'm Blaine Chassie. My father is Steve Chassie, and he'll be driving car number 87 today. My grandfather got my dad started in racing, and in 1964, he built his first race stock car. Shortly after that, my dad went to Vietnam and got a medal for bravery. I'm proud of my dad because he saved 10 guys' lives. My dad's a really good-looking guy. About 9 years ago, he was a model, and this year, he's in the fashion show with me, and he's modeling a fur coat. Lydia Lockery, my dad's car owner, is giving my dad a chance to run the Indy 500.
I love it, I love it, I love it!
She's the only woman to own a car here at the Indianapolis 500. My mom gets really nervous when my dad's starting going in the first turn. She thinks he's going to crash and spin or something. But I don't get nervous because I know he's a good driver and won't crash. In 1983, my dad finished 11th in the race, and I didn't go there. And I can't wait to see what happens this year's 500.
I want to be a race car driver just like Dad. Oh, no, Blaine, in the house.
Here are the proud parents of Blaine Chassie, Gina and Steve Chassie. Steve, you're starting in the last row today. What are your best hopes for what you can accomplish?
Well, I think that if things go the way we have them planned, we should be in the top 10 at the end of the race. We hope to run all day and use the yellows correctly and just continue moving up to the field. But I plan on laying off for a couple of laps, maybe 3 laps, just to let them get strung out and see what happens in the turbulence in front of me.
We can perhaps guess from the tone of Blaine's voice how important this race is to you. But tell me a little bit about the trips across America, running through Indianapolis with your dad, and those thoughts as you look ahead to the race today.
Oh, at this point in time, I'm not thinking much about that, but I travel all across the Midwest with my father and had been to every racetrack in the Midwest before I ever came back here. But since this is the largest race in the world and I think the most important race in the world, I'm just, even though I'm starting the last row, I feel real pleased because with 33 drivers in the world starting this race today, I'm one of them, so that's an accomplishment I can be proud of.
Okay, and Gina, we hope to chat with you later. Have a good day, and as Jack Whitaker would say, have a good trip. Thank you, Steve. Back to you, Jim.
A good trip is, in fact, the first prerequisite in the Indianapolis 500. They're milling in the infield, in the pits. They've come from all over the world. This race is being televised to some 40 countries live today. Much more to come. The 1975, 1980, and 1987 front rows are the only ones to be entirely comprised of former Indianapolis winners. As I said, the gates opened at 6 a.m. But some of the faithful are still finding their seats as we approach race time. This is the view from the Goodyear blimp America from Houston, Texas, and what an incredible view it is. There is the blimp itself high overhead. You know, there are only two kinds of people in the state of Indiana today, those who are inside the Indianapolis Motor Speedway and those who wish they were. There's Johnny Rutherford on the left, one of the real veterans of this track, a three-time winner, and young Scott Brayton on the right. Rick Mears' car will and does sit on the outside of the first row right now. Rick Mears, who won the race in 1984, the one-time dune buggy pilot who ranks as a world-class race driver today. Jerry Gappens is with him live right now.
Indeed we are, Jim McKay and Rick Mears. The first part of this month was very tough for you, all the way from pigeon droppings falling on you while you're practicing, a car that really didn't work the way you wanted it to work or the rest of the team, and now you had to go ahead and qualify a year-old March, but you still stuck it on the front row. You were second quick Thursday in the last practice session. Do you think it's turned around? Are you ready to win this thing?
Well, I hope so. You know, I think we peaked a little too early last year. Hopefully we're peaking at the right time this time. You know, the guys did a tremendous job with the Pennzoil car, the March, getting the thing turned around and able for me to run and qualify the way we did. So really, you know, I'm very comfortable with the car. It felt good on Thursday, and, you know, you never know until you see the checkered flag or whatever, how the conditions and stuff are going to be. So we're just going to hopefully run all day and then see where we're at.
Is a year-old car capable of winning this race? It's never, the last 4 or 5 years, that would be an impossibility, but this year it might be, you think?
Oh, I think so. I think so. Just by the way it shows and the way it qualified and how we ran, you know, on Thursday, I think the year-old car is very capable of winning it, and we ran a year-old, stuck with a year-old car in '79 when we won it, so maybe that's a good omen.
How about Andretti and Ray Hall? You look at those as the two toughest competitors today?
Oh, they are going to be tough. They always are, and, you know, the way they've been running all month long, they're going to be tough, and you know, like I said, there's a bunch of guys out there that are running quick and running pretty good and strong. So, again, it's just going to be a day. It's going to be a long day. I think a guy's going to have to kind of sit back and bide his time, pay attention to the car and do what it's telling you, and find out what the car wants and concentrate on it and work with it all day long, and then hopefully you'll have it at its best at the end.
Okay, Rick, good luck to you today. Rick Mears hoping win number 3 comes today. Back to you, Jim McKay.
Okay, Jerry, there's more than the usual sense of trepidation as we approach the start of the race today. There have been more crashes this month, 26, than in the previous 2 years put together. Why? Well, there are different theories. The new March cars, some say, the new radial tires, inexperienced drivers. And yet this frightening moment on Carburation Day last Thursday happened to the most experienced man on the premises, the only 4-time winner of this race, A.J. Foyt. A.J. crashing in turn 1, he could hardly believe it himself. He said, I cautioned my rookies to be careful, and then I went out and did it myself. But A.J., as he has had before, has put this car back together again. I'm sure he participated in that himself. The car is ready to go, sitting on the inside of row 1. Right now, let's explore the motivations of A.J. Foyt. Let's do it with Jack Arute.
A father's love can come in various packages. If your name is A.J., it's a mini racer to run around your house. But love also includes lessons about life.
I got away with a lot of stuff, but when I stepped out of line, it wasn't, now, son, you go to your room, you be good. I got the hell swatted out of my butt, which I respect, and it probably kept me from getting into a lot of serious trouble.
The Foyt family philosophy of do it better than the next guy formed a tight bond between father and son, a bond that transcended public scrutiny. A.J. always in the spotlight and his father Tony in the wings, but never in the shadows. Regardless of the successes, Tony was there to remind his son of life's realities.
My father never told me I ever drove a good race, never. But I guess with everybody else, he would die if somebody said something about me. At Indianapolis, I guess it's 1977. I mean, he was happy. Finally, we were the first time that anybody's ever won the Indianapolis 4 times. And we was over at the suite, I'll never forget it. I says, well, Dad, I said, what do you think? Did I do a pretty good job today? You know, just cutting up. He looked at me, and everybody broke up laughing. He said, I don't know about good. He said, you did fair.
Through all the triumphs, Tony stood next to his son. But when Tony died in 1983, A.J. Foyt was lost for the first time in his life.
It's bugged the hell out of me, I'll be honest with you, because he's my right arm. He would probably be very upset that I let it bother me as much as I did. He was a hard man. He never showed emotion. Not that long ago, I'll be honest with you, I go to the cemetery quite a bit, and a lot of times I get tears crying. You're not going to forget 49 years of love overnight.
The mourning period was a long one. A thoroughbred horse ranch has helped ease the pain and provide new challenges, possibly for the time when A.J. finally hangs up his helmet. But the lessons taught by the elder Foyt continue in practice by A.J., and the memory of the father lives forever with the son.
I know I probably should have quit like everybody said 10 years ago. My father, before he passed away, said, son, you've won everything. What have you got to prove besides get hurt? I said, Dad, we're all going to die. But I'd rather die doing something and having fun. And he's probably upstairs here now raising hell. There's no ifs and ands. I know the way he would feel.
Well, A.J.'s father, Tony Foyt, of course, has passed away, but A.J. Foyt is still here, just like he was in 1958. And, A.J., starting on the inside of the second row, your thoughts as you prepare to finish your third decade at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway?
Well, really, I'd like to win the race today like 32 other drivers. I think we do stand a good chance. We had some problems, you know. Carburation day, the crews worked around the clock ever since. They're not going to be sharp as they should be, but come race day, they get it up, and all I can say is I know they did the best job they can do with the car, and now it's up to me.
How about the fact that you had to rebuild the car? You're starting with an untried setup, but what's interesting to me is the fact that a lot of the competitors came and offered help and assistance and parts and pieces. But what about you as the driver? What are your thoughts? Are you going to have to maybe hold back a little bit?
Well, I don't want to do nothing foolish until we really see how the car started out. It's like any new car you rebuild. You don't know what to expect till you get out there and start running it. I feel we got it set up pretty much like we had it, but you never know till a green flag goes down.
What about it? Number 5, does it come today, maybe?
Well, I hope it ain't maybe. I hope it comes today.
A.J. Foyt, part and parcel of the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. And, Jim, I think everybody hopes that he makes it number 5 today. Jim?
A lot of rules for sure, but then somebody like Danny Sullivan has plenty of supporters also. A former winner, still the glamour boy of the tour at age 37. Danny Sullivan, live, preparing for Indy. Man doesn't live by bread alone, but he does have to eat, even during the Indianapolis 500. Certain entrepreneurs have been aware of that since 1911 when the whole thing started, so the concession stands are an integral part of the scene here. Man at Indy also lives by souvenirs, and Al Troutwig is in the concession area right now. Al?
Okay. Jim, as you can see, business is brisk. I'm about 50 yards from pit road. Anything, and I mean just about anything you'd like to have with the Indy 500 logo on it can be had. For example, some of my favorites, the Indianapolis 500 air freshener, that's $2. For about $200,000 less than Danny Sullivan paid for it, you can have this car. And for $68, you can have this pretty snappy-looking jacket. Bill Gentry has operated this stand for 8 years. Bill, I guess people would be fairly shocked to know how much money you take in on this during race month.
That probably would be, yes.
In all those years, have you seen any racing?
I've never seen a race.
You want me to fill in for you for a little while today so you can go out and catch a few laps?
Well, that might not be a bad idea.
Bill, do you marvel at how much the people want to have things that say the Indianapolis 500 on it?
Right. They've got to have something that says that 500 on it.
All right, thank you, Bill, very much. Personally, I've picked out this hat for $10. Jim McKay?
All right, Al, thank you very much. I'm standing now with Katie Guerrero, the wife of Roberto, who will be sitting in the second row, who won at Phoenix and has a very realistic chance to win this race. You know, Katie, it wasn't too many years ago, women weren't allowed anywhere near the pits here, let alone to be in flame suits and be very much a part of the operation.
I realize that, and I'm glad I didn't have to go up against anyone, because I'd have been there fighting to be in next to the team, because we're really hoping to come home with a victory today. We're so looking forward to the day.
Well, he's been close 3 times already. Maybe this will be the day. Tell me, where'd you meet him? How did it happen?
We met 6 years ago on a yacht in Monte Carlo when we were there for the Grand Prix.
On a yacht in Monte Carlo. Not a bad place to meet.
That's right. The first time I saw him, I said, I'm going to marry that man.
You really did?
I really did, and it happened, and it's wonderful.
How much longer after that was that?
We got married a year after that and lived happily ever after up to... We have a little boy that's 20 months old now who is here somewhere watching, probably to see what he'll be doing in 20 years or so.
Have you learned to speak Spanish?
I'm trying my darndest. It's not too good, but I get my point across.
All right, Katie. Good luck to you and to your husband. It's a great day.
Thanks so much. Thanks for having us.
Katie Guerrero. Let's go back to Gasoline Alley now. There's the scene in Gasoline Alley. It's almost time for the drivers to be going down. We're waiting at this moment, in fact, for A.J. Foyt to emerge from his garage to make the walk for the 30th time. The pace accelerates at Indy now, like the jockeys moving onto the track at the Kentucky Derby, like the football players bursting from the tunnel at a Notre Dame home game. Now the drivers of Indianapolis make their ceremonial way from Gasoline Alley to the starting grid. No one has made that walk as often as A.J. Foyt. This is his 30th consecutive 500. Why don't we walk with him now? The crowd parties before him like the waters of the Red Sea. You're walking with A.J.
I think take a quick walk. You want it? Go A.J.
Stopping for a last-minute interview. Can you imagine that? I would say that's poise at the age of 52, after winning Indianapolis 4 times, after crashing here just 3 days ago on Thursday. Now he's moving again. Well wishes. Pats on the back. Still in the crowd now. Now moving into the bulk of the crowd, out of Gasoline Alley. Under the sign that has hung there for so many years. When A.J. first came, the garages were wood. The cars were high, front engine. Monsters, not like the sleek rear engine models of today. A.J. Foyt now in the pit area.
Is the musical salute from the Purdue University All-American Band, the Sergeant Forever.
What more appropriate as A.J. Foyt walks into the pits than for the band to play, coincidentally, Stars and Stripes Forever. Pride of Texas, A.J. Can he make it 5? We'll be finding out very shortly. And we're much closer to the start now at Indianapolis. Standing by, ready to do the play-by-play for you again this year in the ABC commentary booth, suspended hanging underneath that second deck of the grandstands that you see there. There you can make out our banner. Let's go right now to my ABC Sports colleague, Jim Lampley. Okay, Jim.
All right, Jim, thank you very much. And it is once again a thrill and indeed a humbling privilege for all three of us, and I think especially for me, to get to narrate this great spectacle in sports. No event as large and dramatic as the Indianapolis 500 would be without a wealth of compelling stories. As we've already told you, you have the continuing biography of A.J. Foyt, Mario Andretti's bid to end 17 years of freakishly bad racing luck in Indianapolis, all the difficulties that the crews and the drivers have had in keeping these cars off the walls. And in fact, there will be many more which will emerge during the next few hours. And time now to collect the final thoughts of our two motor racing experts as we get ready to call the race. First, Sam Posey, who's been with us here at Indy since 1974. Sam, what's on your mind?
Well, Jim, you know, I've been coming to this race for 25 years, and I've loved it, and I've studied it, and let me tell you this. Never before has there been a front row as strong as this one, ever. Andretti, Rahal, Mears, each has won the race, and each is today on the top of his form. And fascinatingly, each is very different, representative of the decade, a mirror of the decade in which he first won this race. I think of Mario Andretti. I think of the passion and the idealism of the 1960s, of a young Italian immigrant sailing by the Statue of Liberty, but bringing with him that fiery Italian spirit with which he still drives today. Rick Mears, who came to prominence in the 70s, the Californian in Bakersfield, playing with his motorcycles in the desert, laid back. Even today, he'd rather watch the race come to him. Bobby Rahal, the driver of the 80s, the college grad, the businessman with his briefcase and his glasses, the guy who even now, as he is racing, is planning ahead for his career after racing. I can't wait to see the start of this race.
I can't either, Sam, and of course, we might expect that if all three of those cars, or even two of them, could stay in the hunt for a long time, we could have a fast race, as was the case last year. But it's a privilege now to welcome to our commentary team this man, Bobby Unser, who won the race 3 times. And Bobby, behind the front row, what about the rest of the field?
Well, number one, Jim, I think the front row is going to probably take off early in the race and lead the race early on, but behind that, there's a lot of apprehension going on within the drivers. There's been a lot of wrecks this year, approximately 25 wrecks in practice, and I really think that there's a lot of concern, a lot of feeling among the drivers, some of them even possibly a little bit scared about the turbulence in the air from the cars ahead of them. The air is what we call dirty air, meaning the aerodynamics on the car don't work so well. And I think we have a lot of that. I think there's a lot of worry going on, so I think there's going to be a lot of separation in the cars between the guys that go for it in the front and the guys in the back that are trying to feel their way around a little bit.
And indeed, when you see drivers like Emerson Fittipaldi and A.J. Foyt hit the wall as they did in the last practice before the race, you know that there are extreme problems, all of them related to the handling of the car. And here now with Sam Posey, a lighthearted look at a subject that has been increasingly important.
As any chef, amateur or professional, knows, the recipe in the cookbook is just a beginning. It's up to you to give it life. Ingredients, preparation, stirring, seasoning, the right heat, the right timing. You must bring to the dish your own particular magic. Like the chef, the chief mechanic of a racing team begins with a list of basic ingredients, all of which are adjustable. For each, there is a measurement or a setting with which he begins. For example, you might start by setting the front wing angles at, say, 2 degrees. From there, it's up to the chief mechanic to blend and mix these ingredients to form a combination that suits the particular tastes of his driver. If the mixture isn't absolutely perfect, here's what you see on the racetrack. A car so unstable that, as the drivers say, it's about to bite you. During the race, we'll discuss many of these terms, but keep in mind that everything interacts with everything else. If you soften a sway bar, you may need to stiffen the springs. A pinch more wing angle may call for a dash more shock absorber. Of course, only the driver can really tell if his car is handling right or not, and of course, as we know from the crashes, many of them are not.
And amid all this uncertainty, can you have any instinct as to who might win the race?
Well, it has to be somebody from that front row, and I'm picking Mario Andretti. He's overdue. You know, you think part owner of his team is Paul Newman, and Paul finally won an Oscar that I think he's deserved for a long time, and maybe that's an omen. Mario would hate to hear me talking this way because he is very superstitious, doesn't like his crew to predict success for him, and in fact won't let them even buy champagne. But I'd like to say one other thing. Today may be notable for the first appearance at Indy of a young man named Davy Jones, a protege for A.J. Foyt, and I'd like to mention his name now.
All right, so you think Davy Jones may make a splash. What about your outlook, Bobby?
I think the most foolish thing in the world is to predict a winner at the Indianapolis 500. I think it's that way more so this year than any year we've had. Heat has been playing such a big factor. The radial tires have been playing such a big factor this month. There's been so many variables. Rookies, car problems with the 87 marches, so many problems, you can't pick a winner.
All right, so that is the outlook of our racing experts, and now let's go back to Jim McKay for some of the most compelling pageantry in American sport.
All right, Jim. The moment really does grow closer now. You know, sometimes we forget in the excitement of the approaching race that this is a national holiday weekend that should engender remembrance principally, but also pride and hope for the future. And it's time now for our national anthem. It'll be sung this year by Sandy Patty.
From Anderson, Indiana, whose rendition of the national anthem at the Statue of Liberty dedication will long be remembered. Today, she joins the Purdue University All-American Band as we hear our national anthem.
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight. For the rampart we walked were so gallantly streaming, and the rugged red the bombs bursting in air gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the hope of the
Sandy Patty, well remembered for Liberty Weekend with our national anthem. Just about 15 minutes now until the race begins. The tension really beginning to grow in the pit area here where we are. And of course, it has to be in the grandstands, in the infield, and particularly in the minds and the hearts of the 33 men who will race for the championship of the Indianapolis 500. There are the cars on the starting grid. Now we're going to hear the invocation here by Archbishop Edward T. O'Meara of Indianapolis.
We introduce for the invocation the Most Reverend Edward T. O'Meara, Archbishop of the Roman Catholic Archdiocese of Indianapolis.
The thousands of us here pause for a moment of prayer. It is Memorial Weekend, America's time for remembering. A fresh memory is 37 flag-draped coffins lifted reverently one at a time from the desert sands of Bahrain on the Persian Gulf to begin the last long journey to their homeland. May they be at peace this day with all the thousands of others who have laid down life for country since 1776. In our memories, too, we carry the thousands of other men and women who are the survivors of our country's conflicts. O good God, ease the pains of their bodies and their spirits. We remember those who wear our nation's uniforms today. Bless these men and women. May they serve with honor and be instruments of peace. Guide all of us in America as we struggle with can we and should we, the endless struggle between might and right. Keep our courageous drivers and their skillful crews in the hollow of your hand. See that all of us treat each other with respect and return us safely to our homes, and accept our thanks for this loveliest of days. Amen.
Yes, Memorial Day weekend remembers those who have died for their country. Here at the Speedway, this immense throng also now is going to pause to remember those who have died on this race course. The crowd rises and is silent for the playing of taps.
We pause here in a moment of silence to pay homage to those individuals who have given their lives unselfishly and unafraid to make it possible for us to witness, as free men, the world's greatest sporting event. And we also pay homage to those men who have given their lives unselfishly and without fear to make racing the world's most spectacular spectator sport.
gentlemen, it is my great pleasure to introduce to you Mr. Jim Neighbors, singing the traditional Back Home Again in Indiana. Back home again in Indiana, and it seems that I can see the gleaming candlelight still burning bright through the sycamores for me. The new morn hay in all its fragrance through the fields I used to roam. When I dream about the moonlight on the water, how I long for my Indiana home.
From this point on, everything is tradition. The balloon's going up. It's been happening since 1911. The singing of Back Home Again in Indiana. And the great crowd poised for the start. For the cry that has been heard down the decades. The cry that speeds up our pulse and strikes a little fear into our hearts. A moment from which there's no turning back. We're about to hear the command that means the race will now begin. Standing by for Mrs. Mary Holman, the widow of Tony Holman, the man who made this race course and this event what it is today.
To the head of the field at 33. Here's Jim.
Yes, the moment and the words that we have been waiting have arrived. And at that time, here to give the traditional command is the chairman of the board of the Indianapolis Motor Speedway, Mrs. Mary F. Holman.
Gentlemen, start your engines.
And there they are. 33 engines being started. We hope all successfully, but for a better view and for the commentary of this race, let's go up top again to the booth and Jim Lampley.
Thank you once again, Jim McKay. And now the brief process of getting these engines started and getting the cars ready to roll. Mario Andretti's car there, apparently starting up well. Same with Ray Hall. No immediate problem for him. Rick Mears in the front row, looking very calm. That car is also apparently started. Just behind them, in the second row, A.J. Foyt on the inside. So much of the attention centered on him, as is always the case as he races for the 30th time. And next to him, Roberto Guerrero, a rising star right next to the perhaps still falling biggest star of Indy racing. Danny Sullivan is back farther in the pack than we might earlier have expected. His car apparently starting up. Al Unser Sr. just got that ride within the last couple of weeks. Hadn't raced this year before this race, and earlier today you met Steve Chassis, who starts in the back row. That scene also looks collected, as apparently his car has started up well. So far we can't see that anybody is having any difficulty in getting the car started, so very shortly they should begin the first of the 2 parade laps at a measured pace of about 70 or 80 miles per hour, which will precede the pace lap and then the green flag and the start of the race. Those cars pulling away are the Chrysler LeBaron turbocharged convertibles, which are being used this year as pace cars. There will be a number of them on the track during the parade laps, and then all but one will move off of the track, and one car will pace the pace lap at more than 100 miles per hour as they go toward the green flag. Of all the many awards that make up the 7-figure prize here at the Indianapolis 500, the first will be the Matchlight Charcoal Award, which is given to the racer who leads after 10 laps. That's the Fast Start Award, $25,000, and we'll highlight it for you at the 10-lap mark. And now the 33 cars begin to pull away from the grid, and as they go on this first of the 2 parade laps, let's now take an opportunity on tape to take a complete look at all 33 drivers who are in the field today. The field features 9 former champions, the most ever. At 47, 32 years after coming to this country from Italy, Mario Andretti sits on the pole for the first time in 2 decades. His Lola Chevrolet, clearly the fastest car in the field. Next to Mario, Bobby Rahal puts aside his golf clubs for the day and tries to become the first back-to-back winner here since Al Unser Sr. in 1971. Rick Mears got married last November. That was no upset, but the appearance of his year-old March Chevy on the front row was a qualifying surprise. He tries to become the 8th 3-time winner. The only 4-time champion has yet to go out to pasture with his racehorses, but A.J. Foyt's practice crash appears to have dimmed his chances of moving up from the inside of row 2. Katie Guerrero is a favorite of wife watchers in the garage. Today, her husband Roberto starts 5th as one of the favorites to win the race. 53-year-old Dick Simon, driver, owner, teacher of younger drivers, oldest man in the race, he's never made the top 10. Harry Lyondike is beginning to prove he has more than just European style. His position inside row 3 may give him an early shot at the lead. It's been 6 years since Johnny Rutherford has flown as high at the start as he will today. The 3-time champ is in the center of row 3. Outside of him, recent father Michael Andretti tries to keep alive a streak which has produced 3 top 10 finishes in 3 previous Indy appearances. Row 4 features 2 rookies, Ludwig Heimroth and Jeff McPherson, flanking veteran Rich Vogler. In row 5, 3 veterans who've never won, Scott Brayton, Jeff Brabham, and for his 16th try, Gary Bettenhausen. Danny Sullivan has had another busy month. Talk shows, interviews, even a soap opera gig. He'll race in another year-old Penske car inside row 6. Next to Sullivan, rookie Fabrizio Barbazza, one of 9 foreign-born drivers. Outside, 50-year-old Gordon Johncock, out of retirement with his first car since '84. Row 7 finds Irishman Derek Daly on the inside. In the middle, 3-time champ Al Unser Sr. in the third of Roger Penske's 3 entries. And after 2 practice crashes, Tom Sneva on the outside. Al Unser Jr. is continuing the race's most glorious family tradition inside row 8. He hasn't won yet. Rookie Randy Lewis brings a sports car racing background to the big show. And 1986 runner-up Kevin Cogan starts today with a lot of traffic in front of him. Row 9, Mexican glamour boy Jose Legarza, rookie Stan Fox, the younger Bettenhausen, Tony. Row 10, A.J. Foyt protege rookie Davy Jones, 1985 pole sitter Pancho Carter, Cornell University grad Ed Tim. At the rear, George Snyder, Steve Chassie, and in a substitute car necessitated by the last practice crash, Emerson Fittipaldi. And as we come back live on the second of the 2 parade laps, the lead pace car, the one most important, actually the third one in the line, is being driven by the noted car builder Carroll Shelby, who now works for Chrysler. In one of the cars, his boss, Chief Executive Officer Lee A. Iacocca of Chrysler, perhaps the best-known business executive in the country today. Joe Cloutier, the president of the Indianapolis Motor Speedway, is driving one of the pace cars, and in that car, riding with him, Mary Holman George, one of the principal owners of the track, daughter of Tony Holman, the impresario of this track for so long after it was bought by the Holman family in 1945. Quickly now, a final word from our 2 pit reporters. First, Jack Arute.
Jim, over the last couple of years, we've seen fast races here at Indianapolis, and therefore we've seen a lot of the new breed making their way to victory lane. I personally think this year, because of all the problems and the question marks during the month, we may see some of the old guard make their mark once again here at Indy, especially guys like Mario Andretti and A.J. Foyt. They have the knowledge, close to 25 to 30 years of it, to be able to make adjustments, especially if there's a lot of caution. And the guys behind us, they'll have to make sure that they can make those adjustments. Let's check in now with Jerry Gappens.
Jack Arute, you talk about the men behind us, 33 pits behind us. Their work is done in preparation. Drivers and machines, it's up to them on the track now. We'll be here to cover the pit stories throughout the afternoon. And as far as the race winner, Jim Lampley, I like the combination of Bobby Rahal, the Lola, and the Cosworth. Back upstairs to you.
All right, thank you very much, Jack and Jerry. We look forward to hearing from you all day. And now the drivers come around turn 4 and get ready to go on the pace lap, the last lap that precedes the start of the race. Bobby Unser, an experience that you had many times. What goes through the mind and the heart of the driver right now?
Jim, it would be amazing if we could just measure the amount of concentration, the amount of butterflies in their stomach. It's just awesome, the amount of concentration that's going on, and the guys are really trying not to notice the crowd, not pay attention to anything, and most important, act themselves. Try to act normal.
Meanwhile, we see that one of the cars appears to be spitting flames. Hard to tell in that shot precisely who it is. It looks blue and yellow to me. Could that be Michael Andretti, who is already having difficulty with his automobile? Certainly. No, there it is. It is one of the A.J. Foyt team. That is George Schneider in car number 84, whose car is acting up already on the pace lap. So we'll wait now to see whether Snyder will be black flag and whether there may be another pace lap before the start of the race, or even a yellow flag and perhaps a restart. You'll recall that last year Tom Sneva crashed on the second parade lap. And here now a look from inside the car of Bobby Rahal, carrying one of our 3 ABC Sports race cams during the day. We will have a race cam also in the car of Al Unser Jr. Another is mounted in the car of Jeff Brabham, and we hope to be getting unique views of the race throughout the day from inside those 3 cars. Al Unser Jr. back a little bit in the field. You can see the cars in front of him. They wiggle back and forth on the track like that merely to heat up the tires and get the tires into the best possible condition for racing. And Sam Posey, as they once again go down the backstretch, your thoughts?
Of course, we've got to think about what's going to happen with George Snyder, but he is at the back. You wonder right now which drivers are planning aggressive moves and which ones are planning to hold their positions, and if 1 or 2 of them, Jim, isn't just plain scared to death.
All right, we are very close to a green flag. If all goes well, this is always a moment for holding your breath. This year, because of everything which has happened this month, jaws are clenched just a little bit more tightly than normal. A long pit row in the luxury suites where car sponsors and owners wait, and of course in the garage where many wait to see their drivers come back if they do come back. The green flag goes down. The expectation is that Mario Andretti from the pole position will try to go for the lead, and it is indeed Mario Andretti in car number 1. Mears pulls into the formation behind him as they go into turn 1. Andretti, Mears, and in the middle of the front row, Rahal drops back into a comfortable 3rd place. And now behind him, A.J. Foyt has dropped back just a little bit, and it appears that he is not going to be among the early leaders. And there is an incident already. There is already an incident on the track, and that is the car of Jose Garza, number 55, who apparently did not get through turn 1 cleanly. So Garza moves down inside the apron, and we'll see a yellow flag.
He's got something bent on his front end, Jim. He's obviously had some contact. There's George Snyder in the pits. He had a fire just before the start of the race.
Well, we started with 33 cars. At the moment, only 31 of them appear to be satisfactorily operational. And what a difficult moment now this is for the drivers, Sam. They've gotten themselves all geared up and pumped up for the biggest moment of the racing year, the start of this race, and now they must once again relax.
Yep, they're going to have to go through the whole thing again. Let's have a look and see what we can see of Garza's incident. This is in turn 1. We see Garza. Oh, there's more than one car involved. There's Garza on the extreme right being hit by a second car, which might be either one.
That looks like Tony Vettenhouse.
No, it looks like Pancho Carter right there.
Yeah, that's right.
In the orange and white car, and going by.
On the inside is Stan Fox. Stan Fox got by cleanly, but that is right. Jose Garza hit the outside wall, and apparently Pancho Carter brushed him going by. There's a look at Carter. Bobby, it looks to me like his car may be...
His right rear is just totally bent. It's going to put him out of the race and possibly a very long pit stop. Either way, it's going to take his chances away for any win.
So once again, just as was the case last year, the start of the Indianapolis 500 has been abruptly halted by an incident. Last year on the second parade lap, this year on the first lap. The first lap, always the most difficult and troublesome for the 33 cars in the race, and lightning has struck again. Another look, Bobby Unser.
Jim, this is very much like we were all talking about before. Probably had a little bit of dirty air. Somebody got sideways. It's a little hard to tell from our picture which came first as far as the cars going sideways there, but they obviously had some contact. It's going to Ben O'Daly's car, Pancho's car. It's a shame to have something happen this early, but I think all the drivers were aware of it originally. So I think they were trying to be careful in spite of what we saw.
We will be back to sum this up and hopefully start the race again right after this commercial and a word from our local stations. Back live, the cars have completed 3 laps, all of them under the caution flag. Let me clear up any confusion I may have created with the use of the word restart. The cars will not stop and start again. I simply refer to the fact that sooner or later the yellow flag is going to be replaced by green, and they'll be racing again. One more look now at the first lap incident involving Garza and Carter, this time from a different angle. Sam?
Jim, the interesting thing is Garza, who got out of shape, was the car that we used in the handling example just before the race started as a guy who's been having trouble all month. The fortunate thing is that it happened so deep in the pack. Garza was on the inside of row 9, and you see, really, there are only a handful of cars behind him. Had the same thing occurred at the front of the grid, there would have been a major pileup, and there's no reason to think this was very lucky what happened here, that nobody hit more substantially than they did.
Garza has always been a story here. He first raced here at age 19, 7 years ago, and this is a moment of extreme disappointment for him, as Jack Arute, I'm sure, will tell us.
Well, Jim Lampley, you're going to be able to see it right on Jose Le Garza's face. He would not come and speak to us. He was a little bit shaken up. Now, the damage to the car is quite extensive. The upper control arms are being exchanged right now. They've been bent. You can see the side pod has been torn away. They're making hasty repairs there. It's a costly accident for Jose Le Garza. Kind of ironic that he got into it with his teammate, Pancho Carter. Let's go back to Jim.
Interesting indeed that he got into it with Carter, both of them sponsored or partially sponsored by a labor union. Bobby, you had a working relationship for a year with Jose Le Garza. What about this?
Well, it's sad. He's had an awful lot of luck at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway, but as I was watching the car, I think where his problem came from, he was really close to a lot of traffic, and I think he got in bad, dirty air and just jerked his car loose. I don't think he thought that was going to happen, but it's the very thing that we were worried about in the very beginning.
Meanwhile, the leader on the track under the yellow flag is Mario Andretti, with Rick Mears in second place behind him and Ray Hall in third place behind him. And now, as we have the yellow flag, a quick opportunity to familiarize us with what we will see on our race cams inside the cockpit of the car. Sam Posey with Mario Andretti's cockpit. No, we're going to do that a little later. We will abort that particular feature piece right now because we are told that as Mario Andretti comes out of turn 4 now, we're going to get a green flag. And you'll hear the cheer go up in the massive grandstands that flank the front straightaway as Andretti takes the green and goes back to racing. Again, it is Mears right behind him with Ray Hall in a comfortable third place, and already Mario has opened up a little space.
Jim, Mario is the hottest driver on the track right now. He jumped that start, you know, before the first green flag. He actually had his foot in the throttle before the flag was waved. He's got a Chevrolet engine that has a little more power, probably, than the Cosworth engine that Ray Hall now in third place has, and he's using it to fullest advantage.
And Bobby, everybody knows that the Chevrolet engine is fast and powerful. Questions center on whether it will go 500 miles.
That's always been a question since they built that engine, which has only been 2 years, and that's a big problem. But Mario's, ironically, has been very reliable, whereas the Penske Chevrolets have not been so reliable, and as well as the Patrick Chevrolets. But right now, Mario's out in front, running in clean air. Clean air is what's very important. Rick has pulled back just a little bit, trying to stay out of that turbulent air right behind Mario.
Indeed, all through the month, Andretti's car has clearly been the fastest in clean air. Many of the teams take heart in saying that he doesn't run nearly as fast in traffic, incidentally. George Snyder, we are told, is out of the race. His car will go to the garage.
Well, a car's ability to run well in dirty air, in traffic conditions, that's what cost Rick Mears the race probably last year. And his car just wouldn't handle well close to other cars. Andretti's, though, we don't know yet. That's an unknown because he's never raced on a super speedway before, right now, with this car. But you notice the big gaps between the front runners. That's because, I mean, they might want to be closer together, but they just can't get that clear air that Bobby talked about. They need a couple or 3 car lengths at least between them in order to be able to operate.
Mears, and now Ray Hall. And look at the 4th place car. Car number 4 belonging to Roberto Guerrero. If you're unfamiliar with this form of racing, you can recognize it right away. It is spectacularly well painted. It's an odd fact, Bobby, that if a car looks fast, often it feels fast.
Isn't that the truth, though? Sometimes the cars that look fast just go fast, but in this particular case, we have a young driver that really honestly is fast. He's in a hot spell of his racing career right now.
And you know what? Interestingly, Roberto told me somebody's slowing down. It looks like Randy Lewis. Randy Lewis slowing down, 41 years old. He's a rookie, Randy Lewis, but probably without much chance in this race. An older man, very happy, I think, just to be in it. The kind of guy that really ought to be in East Hampton this weekend with his deck shoes on, I think, Frank. can go there from here. A quick word, though, about Roberto Guerrero and that brightly colored car as we see Mario leading this race, is that Roberto told me that people tend to get out of the way for him. They see him more clearly in the mirror in that car. So it's not just that we like the way it looks. It might be a subtle advantage, especially when coming up through the back markers in the race.
Well, I'll tell you, he's great for the announcer, too. It's the easiest car to spot in the race. Mario Andretti ran the 7th lap at a time of 44.2 seconds. That translates to 2:03.62, and for this time of the race, that's pretty fast.
Remember what we said, Jim, if the weather's cool, and we darn sure have cool weather right now, the race will be fast. The cars will stick to the track better. We were all worried about having too much heat. We don't have it. It means that it should and will be a fast race today.
Of course, don't be misled by the qualifying speed of more than 215 miles per hour. The cars are set up to run 4 laps on qualifying day, and when you set them up to run 200 laps, that is a different proposition entirely. You're going to give up about 10 miles per hour or more. Again, you are following Guerrero there as he chases Rahal and Mears, and there in 4th place, or 5th place, I should say, is 53-year-old Dick Simon with his best start ever in the race. And now, after 10 laps, Mario Andretti is the leader. So Match Light Charcoal is proud to present the $25,000 Fast Light Award to Mario for being the leader after 10 laps.
Jim, Mario's pulled out to a good 3-second advantage right now, which really puts him in a controlling situation. Clean air. He hasn't started lapping cars yet. He's in a good position right now.
We're told that Randy Lewis's car has been black flagged, so that's why it went into the pits. His crew will now attempt to repair it and get it into working shape so that it can be allowed back onto the track to race. But early in the race, about a 20th of the way through the 71st running of the Indianapolis 500, the leader is the favorite and the pole sitter, Mario Andretti.
Listen to the sound of a closer, smoother shape.
You look at the famed artist Leroy Neiman as he does his sketches in the pits. And, of course, his eye is drawn, as are so many in the racing world, to the work of Roger Penske and his team. But out on the track, after 15 laps of 200 in the 1987 Indianapolis 500, Mario Andretti continues to hold the lead. Rick Mears chasing him, and behind Rick Mears, the third-place car is that of Bobby Rahal. Meanwhile, this is a stage of the race where you look for somebody who is moving up fast. And today, there is an eye-catching car coming up very rapidly in the field after starting back in the pack, now all the way up to 12th place, Danny Sullivan. Sam Posey, I think it's impossible for Danny to ever be really overlooked. His public figure role transcends the sport now, but he may have been overlooked competitively here.
That's true, because the perception is that Danny is not as good on the ovals as his teammate Rick Mears, and he is overshadowed here. But listen to this statistic. His winning percentage in 500-mile races is 20%, and that is higher than of any other active driver. A.J. Foyt is second. So really, we are looking at somebody that we may be going to hear a lot from. Now, as we're back to the leaders, Jim, you see that Mario Andretti is already having to cope with the dirty air of cars that he is lapping.
Indeed, he was lapping cars as early as the 12th lap, Bobby Unser.
That's soon. I mean, that's really quick. That means that compared to the field, Mario is really going fast, and that's what we expected. We've had some cars already in and out of the pits.
Well, there he goes to the inside, past your brother, Al Unser, and he gets past Al pretty easily, and now moves up on the car just ahead of him.
That has to mean that Al's having problems. Mario's lapping a car that should be going a lot faster than that, but too early.
Well, you saw the 12 leaders there as we ran through them quickly via a graphic. And as the race goes on, we'll continue to update you on the full leadership field. Now, here goes Mario once again, I believe, past the car of Davy Jones.
Yes, that promising rookie. But now let's go. Here's a car slowing down. It might be McPherson. I think it's Jeff McPherson, one of the rookies in the race. A car with a Honda engine, only 2 Honda engines. There's some Chevrolet engines, some Cosworth engines, and some Buick engines. But here is a Honda headed for the pits.
Well, what a thrill it had to be for McPherson just to be here today. 2 years ago, he was racing in Tasmania and New Zealand, and today he started the Indianapolis 500. Let's go to Jack Arute.
2 guys that you reported on that have been in and out of the pits. One, of course, was Emerson Fittipaldi in car 20. He pitted very early on lap 13. He said he had a problem. He couldn't drive the car. It was so very, very loose. They took on fuel and treated it like a normal stop. A normal stop is not going on behind me. They've got a transmission on Randy Lewis's car that's tooled by A.J. Watson that will not stay in any gear. So obviously they can't go any further. Let's go back to the tower.
Thank you very much, Jack. And quickly now, let's get back into that cockpit piece as Sam Posey shows us the inside of Mario Andretti's car.
Here is a look at the cockpit of Mario Andretti's Lola. You see the instruments, and below them, the narrow space for Mario's legs. 200 miles an hour is roughly 300 feet per second. At that speed, Mario's look at these instruments will be nothing more than a quick glance, so each is positioned for maximum readability. Here's the turbo boost gauge. If all is well, it will read about 47 inches when Mario is running wide open on the straights. The tachometer. With race day gearing, the plan is to turn the engine, which is one of the new Chevys, 11,100 RPM. This gauge has two needles. The red one shows oil pressure and the white oil temperature. Both are warning signs for engine failure. At the top of the screen, a light that tells Mario his fuel's running out. This light, big, to really get your attention, comes on if the engine's about to blow. The water temperature gauge, upside down, so that if the temperature rises, it will catch Mario's eye. For emergency only, the fire extinguisher. On the left side of the cockpit, a knob which adjusts the front sway bar and a lever which adjusts the rear. Another knob, it adjusts the turbo boost. And over on the right, the gear shift. 5 speeds, but once you're on the track, you use 5th gear only and don't shift. So that's it. Gauges, lights, and levers, the vital links between Mario and his car.
And right now, what Mario is attempting to do is to destroy whatever link might have existed between him and the rest of the leaders at this early stage of the race. Mario is fulfilling the prophecy of many here this month, that he would have a chance to perhaps run away. Now, we'll take a look with Sam Posey at the interval between Andretti and the car chasing him, which is that of
Rick Mears, which is the yellow car we see coming off of turn 4 in the middle of that pack. And there is Mears, and there is the interval.
Actually, it's a little longer. You clocked on Unser because Mears is the second yellow car. It's really closer to 13 seconds.
Or more, even. That's extraordinary at this early stage of the race. Mario is fulfilling, as you said, Jim, really much more even than expected of the promise of his speed.
Meanwhile, Kevin Kogan, last year's runner-up, is in for an early pit stop. None of the leaders have pitted. A normal sequence would have them coming in about 11 laps at about the 32-lap mark. Bobby?
Mario is just literally running off with it right now. It means one thing important. He's getting through the traffic. He's working in the dirty air or the disturbed air a lot better than Rick Mears is, or Bobby Rahal. That might be an indication of how things are going to look for a while.
Well, in fact, Rahal has dropped back. As you can see, the distinctive car of Guerrero is the one which has now moved past Rahal and into third place. And you talk about working in traffic. When Roberto Guerrero started 22nd and last at Phoenix last month and came all the way through the field to win, his big edge was that the car was much faster in traffic than his competition.
Guerrero is just plain fast, though. Only Mears, Rahal, and Al Unser have ever driven a lap faster anywhere than Roberto's 2:18 at Michigan last year. And in the Indy 500 last year, I think this is a really interesting point. He was faster on this track than Rahal. You see Gordon Johncock in the pit. He was faster on this track than Rahal, but he spent more time in the pits.
Johncock, 50 years old, coming back after a 2-year layoff after his announced retirement here 2 years ago. And this doesn't look like a good day for him so far, Bobby.
Well, it's an early pit stop. It's 23 laps in. That's too much. It might be an indication, though, Jim, that the Buicks are not doing so well on fuel mileage. We'll have to watch that.
All right, let's quickly go down to the pits again, this time to the Andretti pit.
We're with car owner Carl Haas. And Carl, Mario's been fast all month, and he's out there really with a big lead. Is he saying anything on the radio about the car?
Well, no, everything. We're still too early in the race to say anything. We'll have to see up at first.
How many more laps till you'll come into pit?
I'm on the radio with him right now. I really can't talk to you.
Okay, Carl Haas busy with his driver, Mario Andretti, right now. They say they'll try to pit. We just asked him if the first yellow comes out, but they'll have to do it pretty quick. Maybe Bobby Unser can give us an idea if they go green from here on out when we're going to look for those stops. Back upstairs to Jim Lampley.
Incidentally, that was a good job, Jerry. Carl Haas isn't an easy man to deal with on a normal day, and this is by no means a normal day.
Jim, they'll all start coming in at about 1 to 2 laps. Most of them 1 lap, some of them 2 laps. So we're going to see pits, and we're going to see a lot of strategy change right now.
Now, you say 1 to 2 laps. That would be on the 25th or 26th lap. Couldn't they conceivably go several laps farther with the fuel in the tank?
They can't gamble on it this early in the race. It's 2.5 miles around this track. It's really 3 miles if you consider when you have to come in the pits at the north end of the track. So they must be a little bit conservative early and see how their mileage goes, and they'll change their game plans as they go on into the race at this present.
Well, as you get ready for those pit stops, Sam Posey, and we look at A.J. Foyt in for an early pit stop. Of course, his teammate George Snyder is already out of the race. A.J.'s car, we were told briefly, was smoking on one of the parade laps, but then later that report was rescinded, and so we never said anything about it to you, but A.J. came in a little bit early.
Well, yeah, but if anybody was going to pit early, it would be AJ, because he didn't know whether his car was going to feel right underneath him or not. Probably it didn't, so he took the opportunity to get it reset as fast as he could. They did do a little mechanical work on that car to try to improve the handling during that stop.
Sam, if all the pit stops then, like with Foyt, were normal. They're all starting to plan from 25 to 27 laps, and that's when we're going to see whether the Buicks, the Chevrolets, or the Cosworths have more fuel. We'll start figuring that out pretty quick.
Now there is second place as Guerrero has gone past Mears. That is occasioned by the fact that Mears is going to come into the pits. So now let's watch what is regarded by many as the standard in the industry, a Roger Penske pit stop with Rick Mears' car.
Notice how bumpy that pit lane is. They come down at over 100 miles an hour at first, duck in here, and then you must stop exactly on the correct mark, which Mears does.
Many people say that the first pit stop of the race is one of the most disorienting experiences in the race, Bobby. You've been going as fast as you can. Let's go down to Jackaroo.
Jim, this is a case what we saw there where Rick had both right side tires changed. Now that is only for changing the handling. What it meant was is he wanted to change the stacker a little bit on the right rear between the right and the left for a little bit of help in the handling. Now we should see Rick go a little bit faster than he's been going in the first sequence.
16.9 seconds. Good.
That's a typical good Penske pit stop. He always makes good ones.
Bobby, do you think that Mears was having trouble in dirty air? This is the same car, after all, that he ran with last year. But before he made that stop, Guerrero had passed him, and Mears didn't seem to have quite the fight that I would have expected from him.
Sam, keep in mind, Thursday Corporation Day was very hot. We have a yellow.
Yep. Ludwig
Heimrad Jr. Yeah, that's another
rookie. That's a rookie from Canada. His father, a famous driver. Now Mario ducks in immediately. Now here's racing luck, right? The yellow has come out. The leader, Mario Andretti, is capitalizing on it because, you know, Mears had to stop under the green, and there a tire has come off at turn 4 down to Jerry Gaffin. There you see the tire. Not here from Jerry Gaffin. All right, now that they've obviously very quickly gotten to that and have rolled it out of the way, so there's not going to be any risk as Mario Andretti comes back out of the pits, benefiting Jim Lampley immensely from what just happened.
Absolutely correct, Sam Posey. I believe that Mario was already committed to the pit stop before the yellow flag came out. So that's precisely the kind of luck that his supporters would say he hasn't had for the past 17 years.
Jim, that's racer's luck. Just plain racer's luck. He really threw the dice good that time, I promise.
And there's Danny Sullivan now into the pits. Sullivan, who's been making a big early run in the race and has moved all the way up for the moment to third place. That will change as they reshuffle out of the pits. But we have an exciting early sequence in the Indianapolis 500, and we have the beginnings of a Mario Andretti-centered drama. We'll be back to stay with it right after this.
In 1980, Johnny Rutherford won the Indianapolis 500 from the pole position, and Tom Sneva finished second, starting from the 33rd position. This is the only time the first and last place starters in an Indianapolis field finished first and second.
This is Jim Lampley back live in Indianapolis, where you can see that the yellow flag remains out on lap 31 of the Indianapolis 500 while we are away. This moment of trouble in Michael Andretti's pit. At this moment, the Michael Andretti team is still recovering from this incident. Bobby, smoke in the pit. There may have been a fire.
Well, there obviously was a fire. What caused it at a pit stop, I really can't tell you right now. There was so much happening. All at the same time, we had action all around this racetrack.
And now, Sam Posey, Michael Andretti's car is being pushed to the garage in front of us. For the moment, it is he who has inherited his father's legacy of racing bad luck here.
Yes, but it's the first time he's had bad luck here, Jim, because he has raced that crewman there with his back to us, so the helmet on might have been hurt. But this is the first time that Michael Andretti in 4 starts has ever been out of the race. He finished his first 3 starts here, appeared to have a real lucky streak going.
And now there is a look at a very frustrated Michael Andretti live. Remember that a methanol fire does not produce flames. You do not see flames. You see only some vapor with a methanol fire.
As we were looking at, let's go to Jerry Gaplin right now. Jerry has the report.
Michael Andretti, Michael, a pit fire there, a lot of scare. What happened?
Well, we came in, actually the car broke anyway. We broke a CV joint, and then the yellow came out, so I came in the pits, and obviously I guess the fuel just started gushing out, and then it finally caught to the engine and started a fire, but it was a bit of a scare there for a moment.
Your crewman, Jim Wilson, seemed to get burned, or he had a lot of water on him. What happened with Jim?
Well, I didn't see the whole thing, but I think he probably got the worst of it, but he looked like he was all right, maybe just a little shaken up.
Track conditions, real quick. We've seen a lot of incidents out there. What's it like out there?
The turbulence is unbelievable. I didn't expect it at all. It was just, I mean, the car was all over the place, and I wasn't the only one. Everybody, it's going to be a long day for those guys, I'll tell you.
Was it scary?
Yeah, it had a couple moments for sure.
Okay, Michael Andretti's okay, though?
Yeah, I'm fine.
Okay, Michael Andretti, Jim Lampley.
All right, thank you very much, Jerry Gappins. And before we demonstrate a pit stop to you, which we will in just a moment, Bobby Unser, there were winners and losers in that pit sequence.
Yes, there certainly were. Mario Andretti, Bobby Rahal, Roberto Guerrero, for example, all pitted under the yellow. The guys who got hurt, Rick Mears, A.J. Foyt, Dick Simon. Under the green, they pitted.
Well, whether yellow or green, you want the pit stop to be as fast and as efficient as possible. As you watch Rich Vogler slowing down, let's take a look at a typical good pit stop.
Each team expects to pit 7 or 8 times during the race. And in this demonstration of a typical stop, the crew gives the driver a drink, refuels the car, and changes the tires, all in roughly 16 seconds. Never is it more obvious that racing is a team sport. While the car is stopped, each member of the 5-man crew is an active participant in the race. In the first 4 seconds, the refueler locks the hose onto a coupling, which prevents spillage. Next to him, a second crewman activates the air jack. Both wear helmets for extra protection against fire. 3 wheel changers using air-powered wrenches remove the wheel nuts. In the next 6 seconds, the fuel flows at the steady rate of 3 gallons a second. The driver finishes his drink and keeps the engine revving to prevent it from stalling. The wheel changers swap the old wheels for the new and reach again for their air gun. In the final phase, the nuts are retightened, the wheel-changing equipment cleared away, the air jacks released, and the fuel hose uncoupled. The crew chief, watching from behind the wall, checks the pit lane for traffic and signals the driver to go.
Ironic, isn't it, that we recorded that pit stop demonstration piece with Michael Andretti's team and his car, and that they should have the pit fire on the very first sequence. We are told now that we are going to go green and racing will begin again. Mario Andretti is being trailed now only by car number 1, Bobby Rahal, in second place. Third place belongs to car number 71 from the Dutchman Arie Luyendyk. Guerrero is in fourth, and Danny Sullivan, making a big run early in the race, Bobby Unser, is all the way up to 5th place. There is, on the part of some traditionalists in this sport, a natural skepticism about Sullivan because of his style and because of the eminence he's achieved in areas outside of racing. What do you think of him?
Well, besides all of that, his social life is one thing, and his business is another thing, but most importantly, the guy is a good race driver. He does go fast, and especially on road circuits.
Do you think his talent has been underrated on oval tracks, as Sam says?
Well, I don't know. I don't really think he understands oval tracks as good as he does road circuits. He's just a super good driver on road circuits. That's the most I could say.
Fascinating, isn't it, that if there's a shortcoming, he did win the Indianapolis 500 anyway.
Yeah, and sometimes, Bobby, don't you agree that maybe if you're lacking the talent, you apply yourself in a more practical way and you get results that a guy with talent doesn't get?
Well, like example, when he won in 1985 here, Sam, he makes this complete spin, a 360-degree spin, doesn't hit anything, and wins the race. Now, that's a lot of luck.
Now, here we are inside the car of Bobby Rahal, and Rahal comes into the pits, and this is what it looks like on a pit stop from the race cam. The driver's
This is a non-scheduled stop, Jim.
Yeah,
this is not planned.
A
He's got problems.
factor in the race. So this is the defending champion in the pits and doesn't want to be there. This is unscheduled, as Bobby points out. In fact, the crew does not seem decisively to know what to do, but that We know that's bad, Bobby, right? The engine hood coming off.
When the hood comes off, you know he's not going to win this race. Now, this is sad. There's goes two of our favorites, Michael Andretti and now Bobby Rahal, at least out of being competitive.
Last year, Bobby Rahal was blessed with racing luck in the Indianapolis 500, especially in the closing sequences of the race. Often, a lucky year is followed by an unlucky year. And the man who has been most unlucky in the eyes of many over the years is, of course, that one, Mario Andretti, who won the race in 1969 and has been expected to win several times since without ever having done so. Let's hear right now from Mario what it's like to be a strong favorite in this race.
I think is great. I love it. I just love that kind of pressure because it means that you have something going for you, no question. And what I have going for me, I think, is just a very strong, capable team behind me. And I think that's been making the difference. That's what's, we're sort of inspiring one another. It's, we're all maintaining a high. And
Bobby, stay on the track
if you... a bunch of people with abundant talent that given me all the confidence in the world, the confidence that I never had before. So if we've been doing well, if we have sort of been at the front, especially this season, right from the outset, I don't think it's an accident. I think it's something that it's a result of a lot of hard and proper, diligent work. I feel that this team has the character to be able to sustain that peak. And whatever happens during the race, I can assure you that everything humanly possible is being done. And to me, at this moment, there are no greener pastures.
And right now, Bobby Unser, let's point up that was a very important sequence which just took place during that interview. Rick Mears is a lap down.
Oh, that was really an important sequence. Rick was ahead on the racetrack, but to explain to the people, he was going down one lap when Mario passed him, and that is terrible for the Penske crew. There's nothing that could be any worse right now than know you're down a lap, all because of that green and yellow pit stop a little bit earlier.
Jack Arute in the pits.
Well, Jim, you alluded to the fact that Bobby Rahal was having problems. These are the toughest problems to diagnose because the crew isn't sure what the problem is. They say the engine stopped, so they take it in logical order. They tried the spark plugs, they changed those, tried to start the car, to no avail. They've changed the spark box. Now they're back underneath the bonnet one more time, and to be quite frank with you, they're as befuddled as we are. Let's go back up to you.
All right, thank you very much, Jack Arute. So it's a bad moment for Bobby Rahal, who's lost any chance to defend his championship. It continues to be a good day for Mario Andretti. The yellow flag was out, apparently because of a can on the track, beer or soda, take your pick. And the yellow remains out. We're told that they are going to go green as they come back around the next time. They're on the back straight now, headed toward turn 3, and they're going to go green on the front straight when they come out of turn 4. But as we await that event, let's go right now to Jim McKay for a host update on the race.
Sure takes a high degree of intelligence to throw a can on the racetrack during the running of the Indianapolis 500. The weather remains perfect, and Mario Andretti remains the story here. You know, a year ago, Mario's son Michael led this race for the first 42 laps while his father went out on lap 19. This time it's the opposite. The sun is out, and the father Mario leads the race. The green flag out again, and they are racing.
And only 4 cars.
In our booth right here. What's the most significant factor of the race to you to this point?
Mario Andretti. Jim, there's absolutely no question about it. We're seeing something without precedent in recent times. Mario, at this early stage of the race, has already lapped all but 3 cars. Imagine that. I mean, he's that far ahead. The question is, can he break the jinx? And there's no question about a long-time jinx that has affected him. And I think now that he's this far out front, we're all the more reminded of how long he has to go this afternoon before he can win his second Indianapolis 500.
You want to take another look at that Garza crash, see if we can figure it out better?
Yeah, let's have a look at that. Now, as we know, this is turn 1, right on the very first lap. And Garza buried in the pack. You see him spinning there. And with great, incredible good luck, only 1 or 2 cars were involved with him. It is precisely this kind of handling problem that had beset not only Garza, of course, during this month, but a number of the other drivers, many of whom qualified, frankly, in the second half of the pack. The majority of the practice crashes, and there were 25 of these practice crashes, were not among the CART regulars. That is to say, the guys that do the entire series all year long, but men who were trying to qualify for this very, very special event and were having trouble getting their cars up to speed. And what I thought would happen when this race began was that everybody would be more conservative and there wouldn't be so much trouble. And so far, except for that first lap thing, I think I've been right.
Let's hope it stays that way. Back to you, Jim Lampley.
All right, thank you very much, Jim McKay, as you watch Mario Andretti. And, of course, as you men have skillfully pointed out, only 4 cars remain on the lead lap as we are almost a quarter of the way through the Indianapolis 500. Danny Sullivan is the significant story outside of Andretti, he has moved all the way up to 4th place. There are 2 young rising stars between Sullivan and Andretti, as Roberto Guerrero is 2nd and Arie Luyendyk of Holland is 3rd. But Bobby Unser, as we watch Andretti trying to run away from the field, with 27 of 33 cars still running, there's only been 2 leaders, and Mario's brief period out of the lead was occasioned only by the pit stop. It's worth pointing out that there have been many occasions in history where a car looked this dominant and threatened through most of the day to run away. It doesn't mean that you win all the time.
No, that's for doggone sure. Still an awful long race left. And one of the things we have to keep in mind, Mario was really not just lucky, but their planning was good. And then the luck on that yellow flag pit stop, his first pit stop. He picked up, for example, almost a complete full lap on Rick Mears and, of course, some of the other cars. So that has something to do right now with the way it is. Now, it means his next pit stop could possibly turn out the other way. So we still have a long race to go.
All right, let's go down to Jerry Gaffins in the pit with Katie Guerrero.
And Katie, you're keeping busy right now with the stopwatch in hand. Does that keep your mind off of the action out there on the track a little bit?
I wouldn't say exactly off, but it gives me something to do. I'm such a nervous wreck. Just to have something to hold and work with for the moment keeps me happy.
What kind of lap speeds is Roberto turning in right now?
He was running a set of well over 200, about 203. He's running very strong. Everything's great. They got fuel without having to change tires, so he's very happy with the car up to this point, and we're really optimistic.
Hope to be in victory lane in a couple hours.
Oh, would we love that.
Katie Guerrero cheering her husband Roberto on right now from pit road.
And he's looking good, as he has so many times here at Indianapolis. 2nd, 3rd, and 4th in the last 3 years. Roberto Guerrero is knocking on the door. Of course, this is one of the biggest sports events anywhere in the world. It attracts a wide variety of celebrities, many from the sports world. You may have seen Greg Norman, the great golfer, walking on the track before the start of the race. I saw Gail Sayers at my hotel just a couple of days ago. And right now, Al Troutwig is standing by with 2, or 1 if you prefer, of the greatest names in the history of American alpine skiing. You'll see what I mean.
Jim, you name dropper. I'm with Phil and Steve Mayer. Phil on my left and Steve on my right. They are currently in auto racing, having now given up the skiing route, the Olympic medals. I'd like to know your impressions, Phil, of your first Indianapolis 500.
Well, I tell you, it's quite different than television. You don't get the full flavor from that. The crowds here are immense. It's huge, and the people are rather rowdy. But there's a lot of pageantry here as well with, the week-long activity before the race. But it's really exciting here. It's electrifying.
Thank you, Phil. These guys have gone 85, 90 miles per hour on skis. I guess, Steve, once the speed is in your blood, you can't wait to do something else, and that's why you've gone into racing.
Yeah, it is. I guess you just need that thrill of going fast. And we've always enjoyed car racing, decided to get into it. Not quite at this level. I don't plan to go to this level, but still some kind of car racing. For this year for sure, and maybe down the road as well.
All right, Jim, these 2 finished 4th in their last race. They've got 7 more this year. Gentlemen, thanks very much. Jim?
Thank you.
And thank you very much, Al Troutwig, as we take a look now at car number 30, the red, white, and blue car. That is Al Unser Jr. And the yellow car right behind him is Al Unser Sr. Father and son challenging each other. They are in 10th and 11th places. Bobby, you raced against your brother many times. What do you know of what this experience is like for your brother and your nephew?
Well, I'll guarantee you one thing. Neither one will make it easy on the other one. They'll just be looking at each other just like they're another number, another color of a car on the racetrack. They treat it very good that way. I've never understood, though, how a father and son can run so hard, so close together. I really couldn't have done it myself with my son.
And And we hope, of course, that your son, Robbie, currently in Methodist Hospital here after a crash which broke his leg Friday night, is going to have a safe recovery and a quick recovery from that injury. Our thoughts with Robbie this weekend as Al Unser Jr. flaps the car and now tries to put a little space between him and his dad. Well, weren't you proud of Al Jr. back in '83 when he tried to block Tom Sneva in the last 10 laps and help your brother win the race?
Yes, I really was. He didn't really try to block him, but he certainly did try to mess up his hair.
He told me he tried to block him, Bobby. All right. We are a quarter of the way through the Indianapolis 500, and maybe Mario Andretti is a quarter of the way to his second victory. We'll be back. Back live, and you are on the Indianapolis Motor Speedway in the car of Al Unser Jr., car number 30, currently running in 8th place in the race, and making a little move up through the pack. Earlier, Sam Posey asked Al Unser Jr. what it's like racing against boyhood idols.
It's like it always was. It was like the first race. You know, it was, you know, these guys, they were my idols when I grew up, and they are my idols today. And when I go up beside A.J. Foyt, man, I get goosebumps in me. When I go up beside Mario, I get goosebumps in me. Dad, the same way. You know, I mean, these are my idols, and they still are today, and they always will be.
Bobby, that's your nephew.
Boy, just look at his head jumping around there. That just comes to mind. I have to point it out to all the people watching. The turbulence. Just look. Now, he's in clean air, and still notice how much his head jumping around. Now, the race car is feeling the same thing. So it's really a problem, the turbulence on this track.
Really points up what Michael Andretti said down there in the pits to Jerry Gaffins about how bad the turbulence is.
Well, and it's always in the first stages of the race, too, when most cars are out on the track, that the turbulence is at its worst. It thins out a little bit as time goes on, but the beating that the driver takes in the duration of the race is much greater than I think most people suspect.
Meanwhile, a developing story is the Dutch driver who is currently running third in the race. He finished third at Phoenix just a month ago. Man with a road racing background who's learning to become an oval track racer very fast. Harry Lyondike. Jack Arute is standing by now with the man who owns Lyondike's car.
And that man's name, Jim Lampley, is Ron Hemmelgarn. And Ron, it's been a tremendous run, first at Phoenix and now here at Indianapolis for Ari.
Well, we're prepared. We're running exactly where we want to be. Our whole strategy is stay on the lead lap and hold it off till about 100 laps to go. When we start, we got a 100 lap mark, we're going to start turning it on. And I think we got a real good chance of winning this.
You've kept your speed down at about 196 to 197 miles per hour, so it seems to bear that out. What about Ari? Has he reported any severe turbulence in the car? A lot of the drivers coming out say the air is really dirty today.
No, Ari's having a fine ride. He's calling back in. Everything is fine. No problems. Our chassis set. We've worked hard all month, and I feel the Living Well Provimi car is going to come down.
You can be sure that the people watching in Holland are going to be cheering Ari, but the people in Columbus, Ohio are not too happy today, Jim Lampley, because Bobby Rahall's been back in the pits as well. Let's go back to you.
Well, that's a good point. Let's pick that story up one more time as Bobby Rahal has again gone into the pits. He was in 24th place, 6 laps down for a brief period that he spent on the track, and now he is apparently back in the pits to do some more work. So Rahal struggles through most of the day and will struggle, I'm sure, for as long as he's in the race. And now let's go to Al Troutwig with an update on Steve Chassie, whom you met in our pre-race show.
Going back on Bobby Rahal.
I'm focusing on Steve Chassie and his progress, and so far the progress has been good, from 32nd to 28th to 24th, and now 20th place. Gina Chassie, Steve's wife, are you happy?
Yes, I'm very happy. He seems to be running well and just pacing himself. That's what he wanted to do.
I spoke to Yui, and they tell me the car is running smoothly and everything is fine.
Things seem to be running well. He looks very smooth.
Gina, are you nervous or scared?
I was nervous before it started. Now I'm fine.
You're okay?
Yeah, fine.
We'll check with you later. Thank you very much. Jim?
I think Al doubts her, and I do a little bit too. She looks a bit apprehensive to me, and of course, who wouldn't be? There, incidentally, is a look at car number 71 of Harry Lyondike, and his success, along with that of the man just ahead of him, Roberto Guerrero, points up the tremendous influence of foreign drivers in this race, which is growing, it seems, with each passing year in the 80s. Now Lyondike comes in, and this should be a normal pit stop. They're having to pit under the green in this sequence.
Yes, and at this point, Guerrero is starting to catch Mario, too. It's the first time there's been any dent in the Mario Andretti lead, and it'll be interesting to see in the exchange of pit stops what happened. You mentioned the foreign influence. Here's Lyondike of Holland, Guerrero, of course, of Colombia in second, Mario Andretti, born in Italy. But it's not only among the drivers. All of the cars are made in England. The 28 Marches, the 5 Lolas, and all but a handful of engines, the Buick engines, are all made in Italy as well. Now we're seeing Guerrero come into the pit. This is going to be very important, Jim.
22-second pit stop for Lyondike. That was not all that quick. Let's watch Guerrero, Bobby.
They're doing something on the back, adjusting.
Pit fire in Al Unser Jr.'s pit. Pit fire in Unser Jr.'s pit. Little Al looks to be okay for the moment. You can see that the crew is working on the car. And we are in the race cam right now as we get a close-up look.
They're pushing it back. He overshot a little bit in the middle of everything.
That's the water they threw on to stop the alcohol fires, to thin out the alcohol so it doesn't burn. That's what we see on the race cam. There's Mario coming into the pits now. See how his pit stop does.
Guerrero's was 20.1 seconds, so he got a couple of seconds on Lyondike with that. This is the team that won the pit stop competition this past Thursday. Fastest pit crew in the race, theoretically, according to that competition. And it looks like they're going to pick up a couple of seconds on Guerrero with that one. And right now, the leader on the track, not yet having pitted in this sequence, is Danny Sullivan. 1985 Indianapolis 500 champion Danny Sullivan has made a dramatic run in a 1986 March car, which he qualified last weekend, dumping out on the Penske PC-16 he qualified the week before.
A simple country boy.
It's sinful, absolutely.
Indianapolis Motor Speedway Hall of Fame Museum brings you all the excitement and tradition of the greatest spectacle in racing. See winning race cars, race memorabilia, classic passenger cars, and tour auto racing's famous 2.5-mile oval, the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. Visit the Hall of Fame Museum, open 364 days a year.
Back live at Indy. Let's go to Jack LaRoute and Danny Sullivan's pit.
Well, Danny Sullivan is taking on fuel that completed that. There was no tire changes. He is off and away. And one problem that he had, gentlemen, was he was trying to get one of his tearaways off the front of his helmet, and he was unable to do so. But a relatively normal stop, but what a break. The yellow comes out before Sullivan has to pit. A great break for him.
Absolutely right, Jack. That visor is a small annoyance compared to what just fell into Danny Sullivan's lap while we were away in commercial. You saw all the leaders pitting under the green flag. Sullivan waited, and while he waited, suddenly a yellow flag came out for debris on the track. And the result of that is that at this stage, right now, 64 laps into the Indy 500, the leader is no longer Mario Andretti. It is Danny Sullivan.
Yes, and also my brother Al came in under the yellow, so he's going to benefit from that lap down that he was. This is all in reference to Mario, Jim.
Two of the Penske cars benefiting enormously. Sullivan is the leader right now.
Yes, and it's not just a question of luck, because as Bobby pointed out earlier, Danny Sullivan has cranked the boost back a little bit and is trying to make a run for it on fewer stops than the other guys.
So that is the story right now. Mario Andretti's overwhelming control of the race suddenly broken for a moment. And we'll be back after this word from our local stations.
The Indianapolis 500 is being brought to you by the Discover Card, the credit card that offers a wide range of financial services. And by Match Light, proud sponsor of the 1987 Indianapolis 500 Fast Start Award.
Back live, and as the cars circle the track under the yellow flag, let's take a brief moment to remind you of next Saturday's ABC's Wide World of Sports, 4:30 Eastern and Pacific, 3:30 Central Time. Mike Tyson talks about the great heavyweights, the mini marathon from New York City with some of the great women runners in the world, and, of course, our Athlete of the Week award series continues. But Tyson talking about the great heavyweights. Mario Andretti, we're told now, is going to have to come in for a stop-and-go penalty for passing under the yellow flag. Now, while Sullivan pitted, Mario had reassumed the lead briefly. Guerrero in second place. Sullivan back in third place. But the stop-and-go penalty could take the lead away from Mario because his margin over Guerrero is only 0.8 seconds.
Well, that's almost bumper to bumper, Jim, and we knew that there was a little bit of funny stuff going after all the yellows because we had it figured out that Mario should have stayed in should have fell back to second place, and Danny Sullivan should have been leading it at the time, but after all the pit stops are made, it was a little bit confusing. Now, Mario's going to have to make a stop and go. That's a big penalty. Depending on where he is on the racetrack will determine how bad it's going to hurt him.
Well, he didn't come in to do it that time, so we will wait and see exactly on which lap Mario will accept that penalty. Only 3 cars on the lead lap, Sam.
Interesting, in the last race for this kind of car, it was Guerrero who had to make the stop-and-go penalty. Out at Phoenix, when we were all there, Jim, Guerrero still went on to win the race, and there's a lot of racing ahead for Mario to make up the ground he's going to lose. But what's involved in this, you have to come off the racetrack at full speed, come to a total stop, and then accelerate back out as fast as you can. So we're going to really see something colorful.
Indeed, at Phoenix, Guerrero did it about as well as it could possibly be done. It was one of the great little pieces of driving you will ever see. And now I'm told that we're going to go for a report. Where are we going?
Jackaroo. Jim Lampley, if they're bringing him in for a stop-and-go, Mario Andretti, that is, Adrian Newey, the designer, and Tyler Alexander, the crew chief, they have no idea whatsoever about it. In fact, they're working out right now when their next stop should be, and I'm sure they don't intend for it to be in the next 3 laps or so.
All right, well, let's clear that up. We listen, as do other people here throughout the Race Control Center, to the USAC, United States Auto Club, radio frequency. And it was over that frequency that our people heard that Mario was to be brought in for a stop-and-go penalty. Could it be that they were only considering the stop-and-go penalty and have now decided not to issue it? We'll wait and see. Obviously, if he doesn't come in, then there may have been a decision made that he did not pass cars under the yellow and doesn't deserve the penalty. Still, he's not running away anymore. He's got a 2-second lead on Guerrero, who has been catching him in recent laps leading up to that last sequence of pit stops. Whereas Sullivan, incidentally, he is in third place, 7.6 seconds behind Andretti, 5 seconds behind Guerrero.
You notice Mario's running way down below the yellow lines or the white lines in the corners, Jim Lampley, and that means that the track is getting a little bit slippery, which it often does this time of the race. Look at Mario. Well, he's passing a car, so he's very low. But he also is running in clean air down there, letting his front wing and his rear wing get more clean air is very important to the handling.
But there's another factor, too, isn't there, Bobby? He's just recently fueled up, and when a car comes out of the pits full with fuel, it tends to understeer or push up against the wall a little bit, which forces you to take that kind of really low line that he's running. Am I right?
No, Sam, these cars today don't do that. The fuel is right immediately behind the driver, and it's in the center, so it doesn't really change very much.
There is Steve Chassis, and you can see that the car is smoking. So Steve Chassis, whom we highlighted in our pre-race show, the man who started in 32nd position, local war hero, car owner, woman, Lydia Lockery, the only woman car owner to be associated with the race, is apparently on the way, well, and certainly is, on the way into the pits. And we'll have to wait and see whether that's going to mean the end of the day for Chassis, who to a certain degree had to be happy just to be here.
He's got engine problems, Jim. You can see the smoke coming out from under the hood there. That means he's blowing the engine most likely, and that's very sad. Steve's a nice boy and a good race driver.
Bobby, a lot of engine problems. Do you think, is this abnormal for this stage in the race?
It doesn't seem to be abnormal so far, Sam. You know, remember, we're really cool today, and we usually have a lot of engines falling out by now anyway.
And there goes Bobby Rahal out of his car. You'll remember Debbie Rahal, who rooted him home to victory a year ago. This day has not been their day, and that is apparently the end of the ride for the 1986 Indianapolis 500 champion. Started in the middle of the front row today. Sam Posey identified him, you heard before the race, as the racer of the 80s. He's a man of great equanimity, business sense, personal poise. He can handle this, but he doesn't like it.
He can take it in stride, but as you say, he is more aggressive than I think many of us who have come to know him actually have realized. You see Mario Andretti leading the race, Jim. The cars behind him are spread out at more or less equal intervals.
car right behind Andretti is Tom Sneva, who is in 4th place, 1 lap down. The leader, in effect, among all those cars which have been lapped. They're the green car behind Andretti. That's the gas man, as they call him. First man ever to go 200 miles per hour here. First man ever to go 210 miles per hour. And a big advocate of limiting the speeds of these cars.
Yeah, and a man, oddly enough, running a Buick engine, which is surprising, and he's doing pretty well with it. Mario, though, Jim, has begun pulling away again from Guerrero. We have word now that Mears may be slowing on the back straight. If so, there he is. You see him in the center of the screen. Rick Mears now in trouble. That means that of that powerful front row that I spoke of, at this point in the race, only Mario Andretti is left in racing shape.
So more and more, it appears to shape up as a Mario kind of day. What is that, Bobby?
Well, I'm afraid that that's an indication they may be having some engine problems. They've been having them, and it would really be sad to lose a hard charger like Rick Mears this early in the race. I hope they're able to get the car going back again.
How early in the race? Well, we're at about the 175-mile mark as we go down to Jerry Gaffney. Jerry Gaffney in Rick Mears' pit.
Peter Parrott waiting for Rick Mears to come into the car. Right now, here he comes to a stop. Trouble for Rick Mears. They're going to take the side cowling off. You see Peter Parrott working on the car right now. Apparently electrical problem. Rick Mears shows a gesture with his hand like there is a problem. They go ahead. They put fuel in the car right now. And Peter Parrott, this is going to cost Rick Mears the Indianapolis 500. No way he's going to win his 3rd race today. He was running up to 6th spot before the stop. The engine now is killed. He's going to take the visor up. And it looks like Rick Mears' day is going to be proved. Back upstairs to Jim Lamb.
All right, Jerry, you can see that that's an extended pit stop for Mears. The Ray Hall car is being pushed into the garage. Only one man from the front row still in the race, leading it. Again, seemingly running away, Mario Andretti. We are more than 200 miles into the 1987 Indianapolis 500. The leader remains Mario Andretti out on the track. Again, Andretti is building the seconds which exist between him and the man chasing him, Roberto Guerrero of Colombia. A.J. Foyt, we spoke so much about before the race, is currently running in 11th place. He is 2 laps down. A.J. still out there on the track, apparently not headed for that long-awaited 5th victory today in his 30th time in the race. Meanwhile, Bobby Rahall's car has been pushed into the garage, as we told you at the beginning of the day. One of our 3 ABC race cams is inside the Rahal car, so that's gone for us, as Jack Caruth stands by with Bobby.
Well, Bobby is still out here on pit road watching the rest of the race, but first, what took you out, Bob?
Ignition problem, and the ignition box let go, and you know, that was the first pit stop, but I think there's something a little deeper than that, because...
Oh, let's pick up. We've got a problem out on the racetrack.
Let's pick up. We got a problem on the racetrack. Sorry to interrupt Bobby Rahal, but Danny Sullivan has just spun the car, and again, Sullivan spins and goes forward.
He created his own yellow line. I don't know why he didn't come into the pits right then, Jim. He had a chance to pull right in right after the spin. Doesn't make a bit of sense.
Well, maybe he wasn't able to collect his wits rapidly enough to get into the pits. He may have flattened tires a little.
Couldn't it make sense because he's waiting for the pack to get slowed down? Wouldn't it make more sense to take that lap? Wasn't that an example of really good thinking? I mean, I think maybe that did make sense for him. Well,
waiting for the pack to punch up,
in the pits. And by the way, before this yellow, Mario was literally burying Roberto Guerrero. He was pulling away that fast.
I think the thing we have to use on pit stop sometimes is the first in, the first out. Under yellow, they all slow down. Most of the drivers, the cars don't know where the yellow occurs. Yeah. So they slow down, more of an immediate thing. That's what the rules say to do.
You think Sullivan could have been disoriented or not sure enough of his car to risk pulling in? Because he was right at the end of the pit wall. Let's have a look at what we've got on that Sullivan incident.
He went clear down through the infield, down in the grass.
Wow.
So let's see if it looks like he hurt the car.
Has any racer ever had the kind of fortune here at Indianapolis that Danny Sullivan has had in the past 3 years? Let's look back right now with Al Troutwig at 1985.
37-year-old Danny Sullivan grew up in Louisville. where everyone knows the horse has never spun around and won the Kentucky Derby. That was also true of cars in the Indy 500 until 1985. Entering turn 1 on the 120th lap, Sullivan tried to pass Andretti, and what took place will forever be frozen in the minds of those who saw it happen. 20 laps later, Sullivan passed Andretti and became the first driver to spin out and win the Indy 500, his first. And when complimented after the race about his driving in that situation, he said simply, "I had nothing to do with it. I just held on."
Well, and today he held on as well and somehow got it off the dirt, back up onto the racetrack, and Danny Sullivan is still on the lead lap.
That's more than amazing. Here's AJ in the fifth, but on Danny's spin, the chance of spinning and not hitting anything, Jim, I'm just telling you, is a very rare thing. So Danny's very lucky today besides everything else.
Does it say anything about his racing skill? Well, we'll wait and see what he's able to do to capitalize on it as Mario Andretti continues to lead an interesting Indy 500.
No son has followed in his father's footsteps in winning the Indianapolis 500. Al Unser Jr. and Michael Andretti could become the first sons to do so.
Hanging underneath the gondola of the Goodyear Blimp America is Gyrocam 360, a remote control camera. This is the first time it has been used on network television to cover a race, and it provides a spectacular view of this huge racing facility. They've just gone green at Indianapolis, and now Mario Andretti will get a chance to see if he can go back to stretching his lead over Roberto Guerrero and Danny Sullivan, a lead which bunched up once again during the yellow flag sequence. Sullivan made a second pit stop, which didn't hurt him because of the yellow flag, and Bobby Unser, there's a point about 2 pit stops.
Well, it's a lot better than to make 2 or 3 pit stops to make a little adjustment under the yellow, Jim, than it is to spend a long time and take the chance of getting lapped. And that's what they were doing with Danny Sullivan's car.
So just in the last 5 minutes, Danny Sullivan has shown a remarkably cool head under these circumstances.
Yes, because I still say, Bobby and I were talking about whether he should have come in or not. I think another good reason for not having come in, we were just talking about this, was it did give his crew that extra lap to get their tires out, to get all the stuff that they needed ready. Now, Jack Arute is down with the owner of Mario Andretti's car, Carl Haas. Jack?
Carl, you've been keeping lap times all through the race. Could you believe it when Danny Sullivan spun again when you were out there?
I'm glad for him. I'm glad he didn't hit the wall earlier.
What about the car? The reports from Tyler and Adrian and Mario so far that the balance is really good, that you guys are really happy with the setup.
Well, you know, we're not halfway through the race yet. We're happy right now, and I hope we can keep it going.
Well, there's tension down here, even though they are happy. And believe me, they're all thinking about the year that Mario Andretti did everything except win the Indianapolis 500.
I got to tell you, Jack, I like him, but that man is tense all the time. Carl Haas of the Newman Haas racing team. There is a look at Mario Andretti. He is being chased by the man who's been second, third, and fourth here the past few years, the very charismatic 28-year-old Colombian star, Roberto Guerrero. And as Guerrero chases Andretti, we're going to listen to Roberto on the subject of the most difficult circumstances a rider, or a driver, I should say, is likely to encounter during this race.
The race, you always have the big problem, first of all, of turbulence. It's very difficult to, when you get behind somebody, I mean, even if the guys are running maybe 5-6 miles an hour slower than you are, then you get within 50 yards of them, and then all of a sudden you lose your front end, and then by the time, you know, the next corner comes along, then you're in the same problem. So it makes overtaking difficult. The other problem that we have is the cars seem to be quite changeable from the full load of fuel to the light load of fuel, which is really what we've been trying to achieve in practice, is trying to get the minimum difference the way the car handles when it has full load of fuel to when it's towards the end of the run with a light load of fuel and with worn tires and whatever. So that's very critical. If you can reduce that gap, then you're going to be very competitive throughout the race.
Roberto Guerrero, born in Medellin, Colombia, now lives in San Juan Capistrano, California, thinks that this could be his year to win the Indy 500. Let's go to Jerry Gaffney.
With Rick Mears. Rick, you're out of the race. What put you out?
Well, I'm not sure yet. We had a little bit of trouble with the coil wire, you know, on that first stop, and then we got that going and got back out again, and I'm not sure what it was.
How was the car feeling up to that point? You've been flirting around the top 5 to 10, and then that yellow flag kind of put you back a lap, but you were out there running with the leaders.
The car wasn't bad, but, you know, and that one time under the yellow where it put us down a lap, that just, you know, that killed us. And, the pace car, where it came out, and when we were pitting and everything else, it nailed us, put us down a lap, but we were still sitting, I guess, 6th place up to that point. So we were just kind of trying to bide our time and see how much ground we could make up and, you know, wait and see what was going to happen, but didn't get there.
Michael Andretti complained about turbulence early in the races. It's still a problem out there right now.
Yeah, turbulence is bad with the cars.
Is it the worst you've ever seen here?
Well, it's about as bad as I've seen with it, yes.
So can you deal with it if a car's set up right?
Well, you can deal with it. I don't think a car can be right for it, but you can make it a little better than others. And, you know, that's just something we've got to deal with.
Okay, Rick Mears, who drives 1/3 of Roger Penske's $1 million inventory here at the Brickyard, is out of the race. Back upstairs to you, Jim Lampley.
And we look from the Goodyear blimp at Mario Andretti, still circuiting the place as the leader on this squared-off rectangle, or I should say this rounded rectangle that is the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. We are 25 miles short of the halfway point of the 1987 Indianapolis 500. Mario Andretti is turning laps at 203 miles per hour as he begins to pull away from Guerrero yet again. Big guns out of the race. Michael Andretti gone early after a fire in his pits. Bobby Rahal, last year's champion, in middle of the front row, out of the race. Rick Mears outside on the front row. Already a two-time champion, expected by some to win a couple more before he quits here, and he's gone. And right now, Andretti begins to run away in clean air again.
He is, Jim. He's in good, clean air. His car's working good. He's just on a real good roll today. I know Carl Haas, when we talked to him, is a little bit worried, but that's Carl's nature. Mario is red hot today. Looks like Lady Luck so far, very much on his side, and if not on his side, certainly working against some of the other guys.
And now let's go to the race cam as we go from this high view from well above the 2.5-mile speedway and look at it from the racer's point of view. Rahal out of the race. Jeff Brabham is also out of the race. So this is the only one of our 3 race cams available for this picture.
Well, you know, Jim, the one thing that the race cam does not show is that here in the turns there are enormous side loadings on the driver that really are trying to tear that car out of the groove that you see Little Al driving and out into the wall. That's the one thing we really don't feel as we watch this race cam.
And one thing you can't see, Sam, is on the left side of that helmet, there's a strap that goes from the helmet down around his shoulder and holds his head straight. But it also lets you see how much force there is, how much buffeting there is against that strap.
While Sam and Bobby were talking, Al Unser Jr. traveled more than 2 miles.
Sitting, I might say, with his rear end just 1 3/4 inches above the surface of the track. That's how low the cars are and how low the drivers sit in them.
Now, this is a look at the long front straight. It's worth pointing out, and we haven't had a chance up till now, Bobby, that every one of the 4 turns has a different visual perspective. Every part of the race course, even though it is a squared or a rounded oval track and therefore would seem regular, is very different to the driver. This is the back straightaway. It has bumps on it.
Oh, yes, it does. In fact, the track is really quite smooth. It's almost like a glass table. But to a car running over 200 miles an hour, every turn creates its own personality. This is the 3rd turn. Very good, very fast turn. Look at his head buffeting over there. Now, the wind blows more over there, but it's a smoother corner. Here we come to turn 4. Back onto the front straightaway. Now that, you can just see, it just looks like a funnel, looks like an alley, a dead-end alley. Into turn 1, 200 miles an hour.
Turning left into a blind alley at 200 miles per hour plus.
And here's the point. The difficulty of this is so great. Mario is just ripped by Sullivan there. Sullivan now a lap behind Mario Andretti. Sullivan, we hear on his radio, maybe having his oil warning light. You saw when we did the cockpit piece on Mario Andretti that they have these warning lights in the cockpit. And now Jack Arute is down in the pits with a story on this, Jack.
Well, Sam, let me put a period on the story about Mario Andretti and the purported penalty, the stop-and-go penalty for an infraction out on the racetrack. Let's explain to you how that happens. All the USAC officials are equipped with these radios all the way around the racetrack, and they report in as to what's happening. It seems that maybe they reported in a possible infraction, but I just checked with Jack Beckley, the technical director of USAC, and he said it was never discussed as to whether they would even consider giving Mario Andretti a penalty because there was no penalty to be given because there was no infraction. So we were listening to these radios and heard the report in, but never really got to listen in on the decision. Back to you.
Thank you, Jack, and I bring you this report from our producer, my boss, Bob Goodrich. We stick by our story. We heard something about it.
The eventual decision on that would go to Tom Binford at any rate, so I'm sure possibly it would discuss, but before it ever happens, it has to be approved by Tom Binford, and it obviously didn't get through there.
But listen, there wouldn't be an Indy 500 complete without a controversy of this kind, am I right?
We've got a controversy
Oh,
of
that's
that
Dick
kind.
Simon on the back stretch, Jim. I'm sorry to jump in some kind of trouble. The man who is the oldest driver in the race, qualified 6th, was promising early in the game, running as high as 6th and 7th. He might be out of fuel, right, Bobby, the way he's swerving it from side to side?
He obviously has a fuel problem. He's trying to make it pick up. He's sloshing the fuel back and forth across the tank so the pickup with the fuel pump will grab the fuel. But he didn't make it.
Now, how could that happen? We'll discuss it later, but these gentlemen are supposed to know about how far they can go, and they're getting feedback from the crews on how far they can go on a tank of fuel.
Well, Jim, that could possibly be it. He may not really be out of fuel. Remember, the driver doesn't know why it quit. He could have had an electrical failure and think maybe it just ran short of fuel.
That is the yellow flag along the front straight, and now let's go to Al Troutwig under this yellow flag, who's standing by with Steve Chassie in his garage.
Well, Jim, the problem with number 87 was not the chassis itself, pardon the play on words, but it was water in the engine. I'm with Steve Chassie and Lydia Lockery, the only woman to own a car in this running of the Indianapolis 500. Steve, first to you. The disappointment is quite clear. What are your thoughts about what happened to you out there?
Well, I'm disappointed we didn't run all day, of course, but the United Oil car ran well. After the first pit stop, the boys fixed it. I radioed Huey and told him I couldn't run near anyone. It would turn loose on me. So on the first pit stop, they took some front wing out of it and had a little push, and then I could run near anybody, and we were running at competitive speeds, and I was thinking of a good finish.
Earlier in the show, we had 8-year-old Blaine, Steve's son, explain to us a little bit about Steve's life. What are you going to say to him when you see him?
Hello.
Now, Lydia, outside, you were very upset when you told me about the car being out of the race. What are your feelings?
Well, sure, I was upset. However...
Turn for me here so we can see you.
Sure, I was upset. However, I am still thrilled that we made this race. That was quite an accomplishment. And what can you do if the engine blew? You know, Steve was driving beautifully. The car was moving well. At one point, I know that we were, or the board showed that we were in 15th place. And all I can say is that I'm really grateful that we did as well as we did. And I am glad that there were some companies in Indianapolis who supported us, United Oil, Life of Indiana, a lot of smaller companies. And I am so thrilled still with the way things went that we will be back next year.
All right, thank you very much. These folks were pretty happy when they sat on the bubble and made the race. There's a little bit of a different feeling in here right now. Jim?
All right, thank you very much, Alan. During that conversation, both Mario Andretti and his pursuer, Roberto Guerrero, pitted under the yellow flag. Guerrero got a very fast stop and made up just a little bit of time on Mario. We'll be back after this word from our local stations.
Back again with an update this time at the Indianapolis 500. Jim McKay reporting here. Only 2 cars on the same lap, and it raises a couple of interesting points. First of all, Mario Andretti, the leader, won this race in 1969, 18 years ago, when he's a kid of 29. Now he's 47 years old. No foreign driver has won this race since the late Graham Hill in 1966, 21 years ago. Roberto Guerrero, the only other car on the same lap, is from Colombia. He would be the first driver who was a citizen of a foreign country in all that time. Mario Andretti himself, of course, was born in Italy and lived there as a boy. Let's take a look now at some of the specifics of this race. The race analysis first. Only 3 leaders in the race. That's unusual to this point. Only 8 lead changes and 6 yellow flags. Now, a look at how all the cars stand after 98 of 200 laps. Mario and Guerrero on the same lap. Then Danny Sullivan, lap down now. Al Unser Sr. right up in there. Tom Snevy and Ari Leyendijk, you saw. Brayton, Pim, Barbazza, Fabrizio Barbazza, A.J. Foyt in 10th place. Peter Paldi, former world champion. There you see Rich Vogler, the others going down. And now they're going green. Mario Andretti leading the Indianapolis 500. Into turn one again. And still having no problems at all, it would appear. Okay, so they're restarted, continuing with the way the cars stand in this race right now. Derek Daly, you see there, Tony Bettenhausen, son of the late great driver here, in 18th place. And moving right along, down to 19th and thereafter. Johnny Rutherford in 20th place is out of the race, so he'll be dropping down. John Cock out, Mears out, and all of these out except Jose Lagarza, technically not out, but he's 50 laps down, as you saw. So that's about far enough back. Okay, out of the race at this point and the reasons. Let's take a look at that. George Snyder, who became a grandfather just a few days ago. Michael Andretti, his father leads the race. Luck was not with Michael this time. Ludwig Heimreth Jr. is out of the race. He crashed, as you see. Kevin Kogan, who's been a factor in this race positively and negatively in the past, finished second last year. Mechanical problem. Randy Lewis, Pancho Carter, who's been in this race a great many times. Others out of the race, let's have a look. Bobby Rahal, the defending champion, is out with mechanical problems. The chassis you met just a minute ago. Davy Jones, the young man, the protege of A.J. Foyt, went out quite early. Jeff Brabham, the son of the former world champion driver, Jack Brabham, out with a mechanical. Rick Mears, a former champion. Gordon Johncock, a former champion. With Bobby Unser right now, what would be the point you'd make it right now, Bobby?
Well, the point I got to make is that the Lady Luck is really smiling on Mario. The yellow flags have always been a big factor in how the race turns out, and then the pit stops also. Right now, no matter what happens, it would appear that the chips are falling for Mario. He's controlling the race as the fastest car, but Lady Luck is following him right down the road.
Anything Guerrero can do for himself right now?
Yes, he can, and he's doing good, and he's very much in sequence because he's the only car on the same lap with Mario, and he's darn sure pushing Mario hard. That's the one thing that's going to keep Mario honest in the whole race. In other words, Roberto will probably have to run him hard enough to try to break him some way, thinking that Roberto has a Cosworth engine, Mario has a Chevrolet engine. Some of the Chevrolet engines during this month have been giving problems.
Okay, back to Jim Lampley now.
Well, indeed, Jim McKay and Bobby Unser has just pinpointed what I would say is the story of the race right now, Sam Posey. Which engine is going to go 500 miles? Will it be the Chevrolet engine? That would surprise some people. Or will it be the Cosworth, the dominant engine of the 80s, and the kind of engine that Guerrero has nursed 500 miles 3 previous times here at Indy?
You're making a strong Guerrero case, aren't you, right now, Jim? But listen, a word about the Chevrolet so that people are not confused with a Chevrolet engine that you might find in your car on the street. This Chevrolet engine was built in England as a pure racing engine. In many ways, it's very similar to the Cosworth engine. So if you could take a mechanical look at the first and second cars, you would not find the engines that different. However, the Chevy engine is newer, a little sharper tune, and it may very well take Mario to victory. Now, Jerry Gappens is in the pits. Jerry?
18 years ago, Andy Granatelli took a foreign driver, Mario Andretti, to victory lane here at Indianapolis. Now his son, Vince Granatelli, is a car owner. Vince, you too have a foreign driver, Roberto Guerrero. You're running second. Can you put Granatelli back in victory lane today?
Oh, we're a little early for that, but we'll let you know in about 85 laps.
Did you get any advice from your father coming into this morning's race at all?
He gives me advice all the time.
Okay, Vince Granatelli, the owner of Roberto Guerrero's car, watching his man work out there, and hopefully it'll end in victory lane today. Back upstairs to you, Jim Lampley.
All right, Jerry Gappens, and what a poetic story it would be if Mario wins today and makes Vince Granatelli second, or if Vince Granatelli and Roberto Guerrero are able to win, because, of course, it was Andy, his father, who took Mario to victory in '69.
Would Vince kiss Roberto in victory lane?
No one will forget that the last time Mario got a kiss in victory lane was so long ago from Andy. And earlier, we asked Mario Andretti how bad luck and the long string of freakish incidents which have knocked him out of this race have affected him. Have they affected him more than it would have been in any other race?
Yeah, I think the luck factor here has been substantial, actually on the downside. And I look for Lady Luck to probably just use a little bit of compassion this time, because there were times here where with just a little bit of help in that direction, we could have probably had the best or easiest scores ever anywhere. I recall I recall back in 66, 67, it was a particular time when I sat on pole where I had distinct advantage on the field. And both times it was just some trivia problem that just put me out of the race early on. Continuing on the rest of those seasons, from there on I was winning all the races, and I had all the reliability on my corner that I needed to go. There it was. It was just here, it struck hard on me. And that's the way it has been pretty much over the years. For some reason or other, I think my record of finishing is a pretty good one. I think I've had good long stretches of finishing and winning consecutive events. Has not been the case here. Has not been the case in a lot of the 500-mile races, and I don't know why. You know, just close to, yet no cigar. So I think it's time that has changed a little bit. I think the law of averages probably, hopefully, is trying to come in my direction a little bit. And again, it's not just the fortune that we're looking for. The ingredients that I have behind me, I think, should be a considerable factor in trying to help Lady Luck make up her mind.
If you feel for Mario at all, if you have a compassionate bone in your body, you have to feel for him as a result of all the things that have happened here. There's a man who seldom shows any emotion while he's here in Indianapolis. Adopted one of the least readable, most highly poker-oriented faces of anyone here, but you know that his heart is racing and his stomach is churning right now. I think it might be, outside of winning that Oscar, Paul Newman's greatest goal in life, to steer Mario toward an Indianapolis 500 victory. He's standing by with one of the public relations men who work in the Andretti camp as they time lapse and watch their man and wait now with 91 laps to go before the end of the Indianapolis 500. Let's go to Jack Caruth.
Earlier, Jim Lampley, you talked about a potential problem in your third-place car, Danny Sullivan's machine. The oil light supposedly blinking on and off. This is Chuck Sprague, the crew chief for Danny Sullivan. Chuck, what's the story on that light? Is it errant, or is it indicating something wrong?
Well, we weren't really sure for a while. It seems to have gone away at the moment. It's a switch that comes on when the oil pressure falls below a predetermined point. Now, it's a very sensitive switch. It's adjustable, and we set it very close to the oil pressure that the engine runs. So it's possible that a slight vibration might readjust it from time to time and then give us a false reading. That's what we're hoping. If there is indeed an oil pressure problem, we've really got some pretty terrific oil with Pennzoil, and we've got a terrific motor with Chevrolet.
Well, now, yeah, but it looks like, and it almost sounds like every time you hear that light, you're concerned that the Chevrolet may not be able to go the distance. Because of that oil pressure light, you're a little more sensitive to it than most people.
Well, you know, it's still a new motor, and we're still getting up on the higher points of the learning curve with it. But at the moment, it seems to be serving us quite well. It tends to be a little longer lasting in this March than it was in the Penske, so we're optimistic. We're running a high 190 pace now, so we're very happy. We just wish we hadn't got caught out that lap a minute ago.
Put optimistic in quotation marks, and I think you've captured what the situation is down here in Danny Sullivan's pit. Gentlemen?
Well, Sullivan lays in wait, one lap back. Mario Andretti, also with a Chevy engine, leads. Roberto Guerrero chases him. We'll be back. Back live in Indianapolis, Jim Lampley again with Sam Posey and Bobby Unser. You know, we've told you many times that on the lead lap, Mario Andretti, in a car with a Chevrolet engine, is being chased by Roberto Guerrero in a car with a Cosworth engine. One lap down in third place, Danny Sullivan, right there in the red and white car with a Chevrolet engine, is being chased by Al Unser Sr., Bobby, your brother, in a car with a Cosworth engine.
Yes, it's kind of ironic. We've been hearing about all these horsepower differences. The Chevrolet supposedly having a lot more horsepower than the Cosworth. But let's just watch Danny and Al. Danny is in front with the Chevrolet. Al is behind with a Cosworth engine, same chassis, both 86 marches. Looks like Al pulls up on him pretty easy. Doesn't look like he's losing an awful lot in the straightaway, maybe a little bit there.
Yeah, but Bobby, isn't that because he's drafting Danny right now? It'll be different perhaps if he's able to pass him. We'll see if he can pull away. That would be conclusive, but what we see now really isn't, is it?
Well, the drafting of these cars isn't really significant. As soon as you get close, you have to kind of stop doing it because the air gets dirty, as we've been talking, Sam.
But he's drafting now. He's drafting him now. He's right behind him, isn't he? Here's Roger Penske, the owner of both the cars, of course, that we're seeing battle right now. But the way Roger organizes his pit, as we all know, these guys race against each other, crewed by independent crews, each taking their own individual best shot at the race.
Yeah, where today's responsibilities are concerned, Roger's out of the race because Rick Mears is back in the garage.
Right, there's no team action, in other words.
Al Troutwig now standing by with a report on all of the countries around the world. 4 of the top 7 drivers are foreign-born who are receiving this race. Al?
Jim, that's true, but none of them are from Japan. That has not stopped Japanese television from coming in to cover the race. Well, let's try to listen in here for a couple of words.
今ようやく ABC のリポーターが入ってまいりまして私たちを生放送で捉えようということです。
Thank you very much. Also, Brazil is here live. Let's go over here. Scotty, my cameraman, we're going to take this run. Come on. Here's Brazil.
Estamos aqui transmitindo pela Rede Bandeirantes. Grande abraço a todos vocês do Show do Esporte. Thank you for ABC.
You're welcome. Jim,
Okay.
back to you. It's quite international here.
Oh, and coming off of that, I've just got to put in an unformatted pop. On Monday, June 1, late night, Monday Sports Night on ABC is going to begin. Al Troutwig is the host. He is redefining the art of humor in sports commentary because he has the audacity not to laugh at his own jokes. Al, you're the greatest. Meanwhile, out on the track, we have another look at Sullivan. And now we're going to hear from Danny Sullivan. And simple question, but you might ask of a man who's had the kind of experiences Danny's had in the last couple of years. I love to hear him talk about this subject. Is it fun being Danny Sullivan?
Yeah, I'm having a good time. I mean, sometimes it gets to be a strain, but you know, you have to think about when you're starting and when you were in the Formula Fords and when you were looking on it from the outside, kind of looking in, and you were seeing the Jackie Stewarts and all those people, and you thought, that's where I want to be. Not just because of the fame or the people going after them or whatever, but from the results, from winning everything. So when you get to that level, and particularly after I won in '85, when everything was really happening, I had to remind myself that the reason it was happening was because of the victory at Indianapolis. And that's what I had worked for. And I would be very hypocritical if I then turned down all those people and went and locked myself in a motorhome and became a recluse and all that. That would be very hypocritical of the situation.
You heard the reference to Formula One star Alan Prost, who next week at the Grand Prix of Monaco will try to break Jackie Stewart's record, now shared by Prost, of 27 career Grand Prix victories. Our same-day coverage of that event next Sunday, 4 o'clock Eastern, 3 o'clock Central. And Sam, you and I are going to get to make that trip a couple nights from now. A.J. Foyt has gone into the pits, and as we look at Foyt, we get ready to go to commercial. And I will remind you once again, only 2 cars are on the lead lap. Mario Andretti leads Roberto Guerrero by 11 seconds.
10 years ago, Janet Guthrie became the first and only woman to start in the Indianapolis 500.
Back live in Indianapolis, Indiana. Technically, we are in Speedway, Indiana. 124 laps down in the Indianapolis 500. We've got about 200 miles to go. And Mario Andretti continues to lead over Roberto Guerrero. A.J. Foyt out of the car. His car headed for the garage. Let's go to Jack Arute.
Well, he's conversing now with Jack Starr, his longtime crew chief. A.J., 30 years, and it isn't the way you wanted it to come out, is it?
No, it seemed like the last 6 or 7 laps, the engine started getting sick and started blowing off. So I don't know what happened, but something happened.
Hey, what about the run, though? Always consistently in the top 10 with an unproven car. You really looked as if you proved that you are back. Maybe next year, 31, you'll be able to do it.
We were back. I could have run a lot harder, but like I said, the car was all put together. I had no lap. And I thought we'd just ride for a while and see how things were, and we're just trying to stay up there.
What about your assessment of the race so far? Is it Mario or maybe Guerrero? What do you think? You've seen a lot of them here.
Mario's very good. He's a good friend of mine. He'd be hard to beat. His car don't break.
As they say sometimes, gentlemen, maybe you should take that one to the bank. Back to you.
Thank you, Jack Arute. And a final assessment on A.J. before we leave that story, Bobby. A lot of us had I personally did. A good feeling about A.J. after his qualifying run. It was a beautiful piece of driving. Then he crashed the car on Thursday in practice, and it was clear that he probably wasn't going to make a big run today. Can he still be competitive?
Yes, you know, A.J. Foyt has come back this year. He still has the talent. There's nothing wrong with his talents. It's all in his desire, whether he wants to do horse racing or automobile racing. Right now, it's obvious he wants to race cars. And how long he's going to stay that way, I can't tell you. But I guarantee he went into this race today with a good chance of winning it, Jim.
Bobby and Jim, as we watch Mario Andretti, we have word that Roberto Guerrero is going to pit. We see from here his crewman waiting for him. But you know, Mario has passed one important phase of the race, which is the early part, which is where he so often breaks down. So he's passed that part, which is good. And here's Guerrero now coming into the pits over that very rough, this is old pavement here, still concrete, and very rough, especially when you consider how stiff the suspension of these new cars is. You see how long he stops. Jack Arute is there, Jack.
Roberto Guerrero is taking on 4 brand new tires. He looks very calm, cool, and collected. They're taking on the fuel. It's a normal stop thus far. They're waiting for the fuel load to be full. Mo Nunn has given the signal, and he is off and away. A very fine, methodical stop for Roberto Guerrero. Back to you.
20-second stop, and you saw, I think, the smoothness with which Guerrero brought the car into the pit, as Jack said, waited calmly, and came out. This is a driver who does all of the little things well.
Well, he does, Jim. That Guerrero, as we said earlier, is on a hot streak this year. The boy is a good race driver. In the years past, he just really hasn't had an awful lot of luck. I think he's turned around.
But you know, Mario is starting to do a lot of the little things right, too, isn't he, this year? For example, his early pit stops, I watched very carefully. Mario, who may be coming in next lap. Now, let's watch him, because my feeling is that he has been far more conservative as he comes into the pits, and you see him here, than he has in the past. He's often, Bobby can remember this, overshot his pits, not so far in the race this year. Notice how carefully he's coming in. Part of the reason for that, Jim, is that he has so much confidence in his crew this year. It's run by a fellow named Tyler Alexander, who's crewed a couple of cars to victory here, been a great star in Formula One car preparation, and I think that, in combination with the engineer Adrian Newey, has given Mario a confidence that he's well supported during these vital seconds that he's in the pit.
Well, you know, often when you have an advantage, a speed advantage, as much as Mario has, Sam, you can afford to not make mistakes. You can afford to be a little bit more careful, and Mario's doing that, and nobody ever called that man dumb, you know.
Interestingly, Guerrero was second in 1984 and now says he thinks he should have won that race. But he overshot his pit once, and he spun twice, and those mistakes cost him a chance to really compete in the closing laps with Rick Mears. He's got another chance today, and we'll be back.
Jet-set spectators fill the streets of Monaco in the most glamorous race on the Grand Prix circuit. High speeds and hairpin turns fill this demanding course as Formula One racers go all out in this ultimate driving test. Chrysler presents the Grand Prix of Monaco next Sunday on ABC Sports.
Back live at Indianapolis, where they are racing for the moment under the yellow flag. Why did the yellow flag come out? Well, at first we were told there was a piece of debris in turn 3. What was the piece of debris? Check the color. That is the nose cone from Roberto Guerrero's car. So Guerrero came back into the pits. He pitted on the green a few laps ago, as did Andretti. And then Guerrero came back into the pits, and his crew worked feverishly for a good 30 seconds or more to replace the nose cone. But I believe Roberto Guerrero is going to go a lap down as we go to Jack Arute.
Jim, let's go back to recount that story. You said the errant nose cone had come dislodged out on the racetrack of Roberto Guerrero. How did it come unlodged? The report from the crew is that he hit another car's tire, and that broke it loose. So then they put another brand new nose cone, which they had available, back on the car. You can see how it goes on. You've got little holes right there that you have to get it exactly right. Well, the force of the hit on the tire bent those little pins that go in there. They had a great deal of difficulty getting the new nose cone on. The Zeus fastener on the top did its job, but it was tough to get it aligned. It's been costly for Roberto Guerrero. Let's go to Jerry Gappens now for a further report on Al Unser Sr.
Thank you very much, Jackie. It's time now. We're getting into the later stages of this event. It's time now to start thinking about fuel a little bit. This is Al Unser's fuel tank. They started with 243 gallons of fuel, almost 1,600 pounds of fuel in this tank. Now they take it and they measure it, and the crew says that the car is getting excellent fuel mileage. Remember, he is using a Cosworth engine instead of a Chevy engine, so the fuel is going well for Al Unser. But that might be a question up and down pit road and something we're going to follow up on with Mario Andretti. The other thing that's happening in the pits, the new radial tires Goodyear has used this year. There have been a lot of incidents on the track. Leo Mel, the director of racing for Goodyear, explained to us there have not been one single puncture of a Goodyear tire today, so it's making a very good debut now with the radial tire at Indianapolis this month. Back upstairs to Jim Lampley.
Good job, Jerry. And now, with less than 175 miles to go, it is a hopeful but lonely feeling for 47-year-old Mario Andretti. He's alone on the lead lap. He has the race in hand. He's got a long way to go. We'll be back after the station break.
Still. The Indianapolis 500 is being brought to you by Miller Genuine Draft, cold-filtered draft beer. It's as real as it gets. By Goodyear Tire and Rubber Company. No matter how far you go, Goodyear takes you home. And by Matchlight, proud sponsor of the 1987 Indianapolis 500 Fast Start Award.
We are back live at Indianapolis. I'm Jim Lampley in the booth with Sam Posey and Bobby Unser. There is the story of the leaders who are racing under the green right now in the Indianapolis 500, and you can see that one car is alone on the lead lap. Now, a quick postscript on what Jerry Gaffins mentioned just a few moments ago. Throughout the month, so much of what we've talked about and many other observers here have talked about has had to do, as you look incidentally at Emerson Fittipaldi's car. Emerson's car is now on the inside of the track, and Fittipaldi, who had to go back to 33rd place and start in a backup car after a practice crash this past Thursday, managed to make it 135 laps in the race, but now he apparently is going to be history. And there is Andretti, who is out there all alone, running well ahead now, a full lap ahead of Roberto Guerrero. But we talked all month about the handling problems, the excessive number of crashes, 25 crashes. Bobby Unser, it's been an extremely clean race given those circumstances.
Oh, it certainly has. You know, the only problems we've had all day so far is what we had with Joseli early at the start of the race. Number one turn, number one lap. And since then, we've only had Danny spinning and just almost nothing. It's been the nicest, cleanest race, and I think the account for that has been the weather. The weather has been very cool. The track is cool, the air is cool, made the cars stick good and a lot safer. Incidentally, Emerson's car is not an accident, so the people know. That's a mechanical problem. He was going slow. Something probably quit on the car, maybe the engine.
Yeah, thanks, Bobby, for pointing that out. And Sam, any reflections on the tire and wreck story?
Well, you know, I think the reason it's been so safe, really, is that the cars have been going so slowly, except for Mario and the 3 or 4 guys pursuing him. When you watch him go by the slower cars, look at his superiority. The pace among the majority of the field is really extremely slow. I don't think we really are answering those questions about the tires and about the suspensions of the marches and some of the other things that were big issues during qualifying.
Right now, let's return to the story of 47-year-old Mario Andretti, racing here after having been a rookie 22 years ago in 1965. He won the race in 1969. It's fascinating to me that if you were to look back at what happened in practice and qualifying every year and then tried to guess which year Mario had won the race, 1969 might be the last one you'd pick. There have been so many other years when he appeared in a position to win it, and so many things have gone wrong. Right now, with Al Trautwig, let's reflect on the litany of frustration for Mario Andretti at Indy.
In 1969, everyone thought Mario Andretti's bad luck at Indianapolis would continue as it had for 4 years. He had destroyed his slick Lotus in practice, but the young driver from Nazareth, PA, slid into his Andy Granatelli-owned backup car and drove to victory for the first time in Indianapolis. But even a good luck kiss from Andy Granatelli could not change the fact that for Mario Andretti, it would be his only win to date. In 1975, Mario's jinx was again on full display in the backstretch of the Speedway as he swerved out of control and into the wall. His 12th trip to the Indianapolis 500 was completed with the aid of a tow truck, and all he carried away from the track were bruises. In 1978, Mario failed at Indy again, but concentrated his efforts on the Formula One circuit and won the World Driving Championship. But even this moment of joy was tainted because his teammate Ronnie Peterson died in the race that gave him the title. In 1982, Mario was only yards away from receiving the green flag at Indianapolis again, only to fall short of the brick line because of this aborted start. Kevin Cogan veering out of control, hitting A.J. Foyt, and then Mario hitting him. The only thing hurt in the crash was Mario's chance to break his awful string of bad luck. 2 years ago, in the 69th edition of the Great Race, Mario became a victim of driving magic. Not his own, but Danny Sullivan's. It was Sullivan who got everyone's attention recovering from this spin and going on to win the race. Mario came in second. Then last year, a crash in practice after he had qualified for the field at better than 212 miles per hour. The irreparable damage forced Andretti to start from the last row in his backup car. And that car only lasted 19 laps on race day. This year, with the pole position at every race, a victory at Long Beach in a car that has run laps at speeds over 218 miles per hour, one wonders whether the Indy hex that has seemingly hovered over Mario Andretti since '69 will finally be lifted.
Piloting the Goodyear Blimp America is Captain John Moran from Spring, Texas, and operating Gyrocam 360 is ABC's Ken Sanborn. They follow Mario Andretti. Bobby, you raced against him hundreds of times. Did he create a lot of his own bad luck?
No, he didn't really, Jim. It's just sometimes it happens that way. A driver has to, first of all, be fast. And after he's fast, he has to have a little bit of luck go with him. Now, Mario's had a lot of luck in his racing career. For example, he's hardly ever had any hurts. In other words, he has very little what we call sheep time. But he is fast. He just needs a little bit of luck going his way, and that's what he has today.
Well, I really agree with Bobby's assessment. You know, Mario has dominated this race, leading all but 5 laps so far. You see Paul Newman there, hoping that his good luck this year will be transferred to Mario.
It's real. From overhead at Indianapolis, a look at the second-place car, number 4, Roberto Guerrero. A long way now between Guerrero and the leader, Mario Andretti, who is 1 full lap ahead. As you follow Guerrero past the luxury suites on the backside, and there is the third-place car, the yellow car, number 25, being driven by Al Unser Sr., 3-time winner of the Indianapolis 500. Didn't have a ride this year, was out of any car until 2 weeks ago when he took over the car, which Danny Ungaias had crashed, and which is fostered by Roger Penske Racing. We asked Al Unser Sr. for his feelings about the possibility of not being in this year's Indianapolis 500 and then winding up with a ride after all.
Well, coming here, you know, the thing about it was that I knew when I, through the winter months, and when I made the decision of turning down certain games or certain rides or whatever, that it was going to be hard when I came here this month. And I'm telling you, it's a very empty feeling. It really is. In my career, I had never been at Indianapolis without a ride. So it was empty, yes.
And Al Unser Sr., incidentally, earlier passed Danny Sullivan to move into third place. We're going to get a good look there at the lovely Karen Unser, your sister-in-law, Bobby, doing her job in the pit. I'm told there is debris on the track, and the yellow light is on. It's interesting to me, Bobby, that your brother has been overlooked to a certain degree in all of the public imagery which has surrounded Andretti, A.J. Foyt, yourself, but if he were to somehow get lucky and win today, you can state a case for him being the greatest of all Indianapolis 500 drivers.
Well, there's no question about that, Jim. Al is still one of the fastest drivers that there is in the whole country. It's just that there aren't as many teams today as we used to have. With the cost of racing going up, there's just not very many teams operating. And that's left Al because of his choice of cars without a ride. But I'll guarantee you, going with Al is no different than going to the bank.
Indeed, he has won more money at Indianapolis than any other driver. Now, there is no yellow flag yet. I incorrectly anticipated that there would be a yellow. You clearly saw the shot of the debris that was on the track. It was on the back stretch where Mario is right now. And there it is, right there, right just to camera right of his car, and Mario apparently saw it and went by cleanly, and now the yellow flag comes out. Do you think he saw it?
No, then we've got another wreck. back. Sneva, looks like Tom Sneva has had contact probably with the wall, although we didn't see them. He lost the whole right side of the car. He had hard contact, Jim.
Third crash in the month of May for Tom Sneva.
Last year, at the start of the race, Tom crashed before the green. This is not like Tom to be having this many problems, especially on an oval track. There was
Mario in the pits. So Andretti takes advantage of the yellow flag immediately upon seeing it. He didn't even make another circuit around. He just came straight in. We have got 150 laps down. So we are exactly 400 miles through the race. There are 100 miles to go. No, check it, 125. 375 miles in, 125 miles to go. Andretti still leads, and we'll be back.
It's been 50 years this May since riding mechanics were last used in competition at the Speedway.
We are back live in Indianapolis as you see Tom Sneva's car being hauled away from the backstretch where he hit the wall, and we're going to take a look now in replay at what happened with Tom Sneva. Bobby?
Well, he obviously hit the wall, but unfortunately we didn't get quite on it soon enough with a camera to see what caused it, whether he slid in some oil, whether he just made a mistake and got loose, but he certainly got the whole right side of the car off.
Well, we got another look. He's going to come right through the frame here, I'm told, so let's check one more time. Oh, he has just hit the wall just moments before we saw him come through the frame there. In fact, you can see photographers responding there on the second turn to what happened to Sneva. There's the debris that was left on the track. Under the yellow flag, both the leader, Mario Andretti, and second place, Roberto Guerrero, pitted. Now they could go the rest of the distance on only one more pit stop. Pit stop's a key to the race. Andretti's crew won the pit stop competition here. Let's take a look back.
Last Thursday afternoon, a festive crowd filled the stands here at Indy, while others simply dropped in to watch some of the sport's biggest stars. Names like A.J. Foyt, a four-time 500 winner. This year's pole sitter, Mario Andretti. Bobby Rahal, last year's 500 winner. And Roberto Guerrero, winner of the Phoenix 200 earlier this year. While the fans may have turned out to watch these stars, the stars turned out for these stars. They're crews who often toil in the pits unheralded, while providing the foundation for a driver's success. The occasion was this year's Indianapolis 500 Pit Crew Contest Finals, a $50,000 event that crowns this year's fastest pit crew. The first semifinal pitted A.J. Foyt in the upper lane against Bobby Rahal. The drill called for each team to change 4 tires, simulate a 5-second refueling, and send the car upon its way. Quick work by the Rahal team, and an exit that smoked the competition gave Bobby's crew the first round victory with a time of 21.34 seconds. In the second semifinal, Mario Andretti in the lower lane went head-to-head with Roberto Guerrero. Their quick work showed everyone why the Andretti team is considered one of the best in the business, when they posted a winning mark of 21.96 seconds. And so, the crews regrouped, and the stage was set for the finale between last year's 500 winner Bobby Rahal and this year's pole sitter Mario Andretti. Andretti's team manager, Tyler Alexander, huddled with his people and emphasized the importance of teamwork, while the Rahal team, decked out in some unusual but pretty casual crew shirts, gathered up their equipment to tackle the finale. And the contest was a dandy one. With the drop of the green flag, Rahal's group got a quick jump and set to work first. But Andretti's team took their manager's advice to heart and attacked their duties methodically, looking unconcerned with Rahal's progress. By the time the final tires went on, Mario definitely had the clear-cut advantage. The jacks dropped, and Mario was away first in 18.05 seconds to win the championship and a $25,000 first prize. Bobby Rahal's team took runner-up honors and a check for $15,000. Afterwards, Mario placed the victory credit where it rightly belonged. This is really the day for the crews, too, isn't it? This is their chance to shine. You're kind of secondary today.
Absolutely. Totally secondary. I was just riding in there. All I have to do is bring it in, take it out. The bulk of the work they do, and they did it.
And while we were away, during pit stops, both Roberto Guerrero in second place and Al Unser Sr. in third place came into the pits. Unser Sr. exited first. So right now, we've had a change on the leaderboard. Mario Andretti still 1 lap up. But the new second-place driver, one lap down, is Al Unser Sr., who is stalking his 4th Indianapolis 500 championship, a mark which would tie him with A.J. Foyt as one of 2 men to win the most ever. He'll have to have a little racing luck. He'll have to see something happen to Andretti, but if it does, he's right there. Let's go now to Jim McKay for a host update.
Well, Jim, it's kind of interesting to note that in 1968, Mario Andretti finished last in the Indianapolis 500. The next year, 69, he won it. Last year, he finished 32nd, next to last. And this year, well, it looks more and more like Mario may win that elusive second Indianapolis 500. Here's how they stand right now. Andretti followed by Al Unser Sr., remember, now in second place. Then Guerrero of Colombia. Danny Sullivan, a former champion. Fabrizio Barbazza, young man there. Not a familiar name yet. Scott Brayton, Al Unser Jr., so both the Al Unsers are in the top 10. Gary Bettenhausen and his brother Tony Bettenhausen. I don't think he's in 2 places at once. But here is the race analysis. 14 of 33 cars running. Only 3 leaders, only 8 lead changes, 8 yellow flags. The average speed 165.538. If you're wondering about how Mario stands with well, we're going to take a look at that in a minute. First, out of the race, George Snyder had an engine fire. Michael Andretti, fire in the pits. Heimrath, you see, crashed. Take a look at some of the others. Kevin Cogan, mechanical. Randy Lewis, the gearbox problem. Pancho Carter, out again this year. Bobby Rahal, the defending champion, out with a mechanical on 57. Steve Chassie, you heard about. Davy Jones, the protege of A.J. Foyt, the rookie. Jeff Brabham out. Rick Mears, a former champion, out. Gordon Johncock on the comeback trail, had to go out today. Rich Vogler, A.J. Foyt out on the last 116. Ari Leyendijk was going very well, the Dutchman. He had to go out. Former world champion Fittipaldi, Ed Pym, Tom Steve, a crash as we saw just a short time ago. If you're wondering how Mario stands in regard to most laps led when you win an Indianapolis 500, well, a long time ago, Billy Arnold, back in 1930, in the midst of the Depression, 57 years ago, led all but 2 laps of the race. Bill Vukovich in 1953, Bill Vukovich Sr. led all but 5 laps. And after that, well, Mario would be right up there. Sam Posey's with me now, and the story is as the story was when we came on the air. Mario Andretti.
Exactly, and you mentioned people that have really dominated the race. The last time it was done in modern times was in 1967 by A.J. Foyt, who did go on to win it, so that's the point. Another thing is, how sweet would this victory be for Mario were it to occur? Danny Sullivan is one of his pursuers right now, and he's defeating him. He's got a lap edge on him. Sullivan had a spin not identical to the one that he had in front of Mario 2 years ago when Sullivan went on to win, but it's the same sort of scenario, except that today Mario is coming out on top. You know, close associates of Mario have never seen him show real emotion. I've never seen him cry, for example, and I just wonder, luck were to be with him, and I, you know, knock on my wooden head that it would be. Would we see something like that in Winner's Circle? Jim, you've been to so many sporting events, not just races, but so many great sporting events. Do you have a hunch at this point yourself?
About what's going to happen? Yeah. I had to have the hunch that Mario's going to win the race. I don't think there's any question that he's got obviously the best chance. Down in the pits, this is interesting. Katie Guerrero, the wife of Roberto Guerrero, and Karen Unser. Gee, times have sure changed in the last 25 years since we started coming. And another interested party. We'll be back.
Jim Lampley back live at Indianapolis. 400 miles down, 100 miles to go. Mario Andretti protecting a 1-lap lead over Al Unser Sr., Roberto Guerrero, and Danny Sullivan. Let's go down. Well, before we go to Al Troutwig, let's cover this story. Danny Sullivan slowing down on, I believe, the back straightaway. Looks as though Sullivan has a mechanical.
Yes, he does. Remember, he's been having a yellow light problem, meaning oil pressure, Jim. This could be eventually happening. Remember, the light comes on when the oil pressure gets low, and this could be very well what's happened to the car.
And if it is an engine problem, that's a Chevrolet engine in there, exactly the same kind that is in Mario Andretti's car. So we've always known that if there is a weakness in Mario's race day plan, it is probably the engine. Is this a portent of things to come?
But remember, Sam, Mario runs a Chevrolet too, and he's not had any engine problems to any degree all year so far. Penske's cars have had continual engine problems, so there may be a little difference in the builder.
Going 500 miles with the Chevrolet engine is a step into new territory. Has not happened nearly as much as has the 500-mile run of the Cosworth engine, which has accounted for victory in every race here in the 1980s. Yellow flag out. Andretti continues to lead. We'll be picking up that story that Troutwig has for us a little later on. But right now, with Mario Andretti protecting his lead under the yellow flag, let's break for our local stations and a commercial. Local stations. We've got 12 cars left running in the Indianapolis 500. Here was the latest to go out. You are looking at a replay from the front straight, and watch the car in the middle of the track. You're going to see a piece fly off of that car, and there it goes off flying into the distance.
That's a wing plate, the edge of the wing, Jim, and that's about a common thing that's been happening to these cars. Maybe this one did. Most of them take the carbon fiber wing plates off and put aluminum on in place.
Meanwhile, the day ends for Danny Sullivan.
Yes, and you know what this leaves? It's so extraordinary because Sullivan, after his great day, leaves only Bobby Unser's brother Al of Rogers' entire team. 3 has become 1, and that's a very good one indeed. Meantime, down to Al Troutwig. Al?
Sam, you and I frequently speak of new innovations in racing. You're looking at one of them. This is the means of communication being used by the Tony Bettenhausen crew. If it looks like a telephone to you, you are correct. If we knew his number, we could actually dial him in his car. This is Ted Quackenbush, a representative of the Tony Bettenhausen crew. Ted, how's the telephone working?
Worked great for about the first 100 laps, and then the microphone in the helmet gave way, and now we're going back to hand signals.
What does a telephone call like this cost?
Well, since today's Sunday, it's off-peak, so it's 17 cents a minute.
Which comes out to roughly $30.60, Jim Lampley.
Only you, Al Troutwig, only you. And since I've left you hanging on the edge of your seat, let me take you off of it. The car which lost the wing plate was that of Fabrizio Barbazza, the 23-year-old rookie who lives in the legendary racing town of Monza, Italy, and who's been running beautifully here today in the top 10 much of the day.
That's Fabrizio is driving a car for none other than Frank Arciero. That's a guy I used to run for, and Dan Gurney used to run for. He's been racing a long time.
All you Italians stay together.
There you go.
And it's the crew chief there is the brother of the man that was my chief mechanic here, Dennis McCormick. And he told me that Barbazza comes on strong in the latter stages of the race, so we may see a lot more from him yet.
Meanwhile, let's take advantage of this yellow flag to remind you that on Saturday, June 6th, which is 2 weeks from now, or actually 13 days, ABC Sports continues its live triple-round coverage with the Belmont Stakes. Kentucky Derby and Preakness winner Ali Sheba will look to capture the third jewel and complete a $5 million Triple Crown purse. The 119th running of the Belmont, live 4:30 Eastern, Saturday, June 6th, ABC Sports. Green flag in Indianapolis. The yellow flag has bunched up the battle for second and third between Guerrero and Al Unser Sr., and now it is Roberto who has moved back into second place.
Roberto passed Al right on the green flag. It looks like maybe Roberto caught Al sleeping a little bit, very much the way Ray Hall caught the boys last year and won the race that way. So I'm sure Al's going to really wake up over this one.
Well, Ray Hall still contends to this day that he had the big advantage from the second place position, that there was almost no way he wasn't going to pass Kevin Cogan in those circumstances because of the wind condition.
Well, possibly, yes, but I always felt that that was very gracious of Ray Hall to pay, Kevin Cogan the compliment. Now, we look here at the pass that Bobby was just talking about. Mario, of course, is leading the race. You see Al out toward the wall on the left side, and you see Roberto on the right side, who timed it just perfectly in a pass that really is the duplicate of the pass that we were talking about that won the race for Ray Hall last year.
And let me make one point that I perhaps didn't make clearly enough at that time a year ago. You can go when you see the green flag. You don't have to wait until your car is parallel to the scoring tower, the flag tower, I should say. And now let's go to Jack Caruth.
Jim, now is the time when all the crew chiefs have to determine when do they pit for the final time. Well, checking with Mario Andretti's crew chief, Tyler Alexander, here's the mark. 1 lap from now, the window opens. Anytime from then on, they will pit for the final time. Of course, they hope that it will be under caution. And you know what? They've already selected the set of tires that they're going to put on the car for that last pit stop. It's a set of tires they found to their liking early in the race. Let's go back up to the tower.
That's something that a lot of teams will try to do. You wonder if Guerrero has a set in reserve as well.
Possibly, but you know, this year with the new Goodyear radial, the radial is far more puncture resistant than the old bias ply tires used to be, and also it keeps its dimension much more. So the changing of tires is less critical. In other words, they are less likely to have had a blowout and less likely that you'd be using a change of tires to change the handling of the car.
168 laps down, 32 laps to go. Andretti still turning laps at 200 miles per hour and leading by a lap in the Indy 500.
When Bobby Rahal took the checkered flag last year, he became the first driver to complete the Indy 500 in less than 3 hours. Rahal's final lap of 209.152 miles per hour was also the fastest race lap ever recorded at the Speedway.
We are back live, and you look at the leader, Mario Andretti, with now only a short distance to go, 28 laps in the Indianapolis 500. Andretti is being chased by Roberto Guerrero. We keep mentioning that Roberto Guerrero and Al Unser Sr. are just one lap down in case you're not totally oriented to auto racing. What does that mean? Well, it means Guerrero would have to pass Andretti twice to take the lead, and the same is true of Al Unser Sr. And the gap between them, Bobby Unser, is significant in terms of time.
Well, it really is, and you got to remember this now. Mario's in a different predicament right now than he's been all day. It means that he's got to drive totally a defensive race now. Don't make any mistakes. He's up a full lap, so he's got to play careful.
Meanwhile, the man who beat Andretti in 1985, Danny Sullivan, stands by with Jack Caruth.
And Danny, when you spun, I began to wonder if history was going to repeat itself, but it didn't turn out that way. What put you out?
Well, when I did that, we just got a little too loose over the lines down in 3, and I thought maybe when I didn't hit anything, I thought maybe this is an omen, you know, and car ran real good, and we had no problems with it, and then the oil light came on, and I didn't know what to do, so we got lapped at that stage, and Derek said, go ahead and run it if it feels all right, and it did, and then just out of time through 1, it went flat, and through 2, it blew up.
Can anybody handle Mario Andretti?
Well, I tell you what, I think if we had stayed on the same, if we hadn't lost that lap to him when the oil light came on, we might have, you know, depending on yellows, we might have been there for a run. We were running some strong laps, and Mario looks awful strong at this stage.
Well, your teammate Al Sr. has just been in and out of pit road. He's had his service, so he's finished his final pit stop for the night. What about him? Do you think he's going to be able to do it?
Well, I'm pulling for Big Al, obviously, but it'd be nice for Chevrolet if Mario won, and I know he's been waiting for a long time, but I got to be pulling for Big Al. He's my teammate.
Well, that's the story from one teammate to the other. Let's check in the other side of pit road with my colleague, Jerry Gappens. Jerry?
25 laps to go, Jack Caruth, Vince Granatelli, Roberto Guerrero's owner. When are you going to bring Roberto in for his final stop?
Sometime in the next 5 or 6 laps, depending upon whether there's a yellow or not.
Anything you can do to the car to make it fast enough to catch Andretti the last 25 laps?
Well, have to do some kind of trick to pick up a full lap in 25, but we'll see what happens before the race is over.
Okay, Vince Granatelli, the car owner for Roberto Guerrero, hoping something like a miracle could happen for his driver, Roberto Guerrero. Back upstairs to you, Jim, I think.
That's what it's going to take, is a miracle. You could see that Vince was not nearly as ebullient in that particular conversation with Jerry Gappens as he had been a little bit earlier in the race. Roberto Guerrero's last 3 years, 2nd, 3rd, and 4th. He's always finished the race in his career here. But there was a driver named Ted Horn back in the 30s and 40s who for 9 straight years was 4th or better and never won the race. Roberto Guerrero has got a little bit of a mini Ted Horn streak going here.
You know, it's funny, Vince Granatelli is a very practical guy compared to his dad, Andy Granatelli, who's so emotional in these racing situations. Now, you see, I think that was a glance at Mario possibly starting for the pits. Mario on the right of your screen, he's not starting for the pits.
Oh, my goodness, it's happened again.
It has happened.
It has happened again, and you can hear the crowd responding. Lady Luck has reared what is to Mario her ugly head at Indianapolis again.
That shows. Don't count your chickens till they hatch. The bad luck has followed Mario again. This is kind of sad in many ways. Mario's going to feel worse today than he has in probably most of his losses, Jim.
Millions of racing fans prayed only that Mario would get a fair shot, a full run at it. it looked so good for so long, and there now is the leader, and Katie knows it as Roberto Guerrero tries to turn his bridesmaid status into that of a champion.
There's Roberto Guerrero. Now, he, of course, saw Mario slowing. So what is in this man's mind? 28 years old. Now the Indianapolis 500 handed to him. We have heard now word that through Mario's radio back to his pits that he has lost blower pressure, his turbocharger not working. He may be able to limp around to a finish. Of course, any chance of winning is now completely gone.
This happened with less than 60 miles to go. He had led for all but 5 laps in the race.
That's astounding. But this is Indianapolis. This is racing luck. This is what we talked about all day. But remember another thing. It isn't over yet. The end of this race doesn't happen until it's really over.
And there goes Roberto Guerrero by Andretti's car. You see Andretti in the pits. You saw Guerrero come down the front straight. The leaderboard changes. Car number 4 goes to the top of the leaderboard. Roberto Guerrero is the man in control. Who's chasing Guerrero? Al Unser Sr. in car number 25. And Unser Sr. pitted, as you saw, during that interview that Jack Arute was doing just a few moments ago. So Guerrero's got a little bit of a working margin.
Another thing to keep in mind now, it always gets exciting to the end. Al Unser, my brother, has made his last pit stop. Roberto has yet one stop to make. We don't know how that's going to come out yet.
So the real pressure here now is going to be on the Guerrero pit crew. And these will be nervous moments of anticipation for them as they await the chance to do their job.
Roberto will be in 3 laps, Jim.
Sign was just out on pit wall. 3 more laps for Roberto Guerrero. You watch him run around the track. He's 28 years old, Sam. What is in his heart and his head right now?
We hear he may be coming in next time. Of course, his pit crew has been flawless so far, and they've also proven they can overcome adversity very quickly. When that nose cone came off, they made very quick repairs, Bobby.
Sam, the strangest thing I find is how does that tape holding that nose cone on? I predicted it would come off before now.
Second place right in front of him, your brother right in front of Roberto Guerrero. I think Jack Arute's report, Bobby, said that they were able to get that Zeus fastener fastened, and I just put the tape on for extra...
Would it make sense for Guerrero to try to lap Al Unser one time before he comes in? Yes, that's what's on his mind. He goes past Al Unser Sr. He's got a lap on him now as he prepares to make this pit stop.
Unless the radios are working, Al may not even know that was Roberto coming up on him like that. He may not have been sure.
Not with the color of that car, Bobby. Everybody on the track knows who that is. Al Unser Sr. has made his last pit stop. He will stay on the track when Roberto Guerrero comes in. You've got 20 laps to go in the Indianapolis 500. And suddenly a race which belonged lock, stock, and barrel to Mario Andretti is a little bit more competitive, though once again, there is a man who is completely in charge.
It makes you think about Al, though, doesn't it, Bobby? He's won 3 already. He's now this close. Just the failing of Roberto Guerrero. You see Mario, to think of the thoughts that are going through his mind, you can't imagine.
Well, to reiterate what I said before, if something happens to Guerrero and Al Unser Sr. wins this race, you can make a strong case for him as the greatest Indianapolis 500 driver of all time.
Well, Al still has a chance of winning it. This race is not over. That's a neat thing about Indianapolis. This doggone thing doesn't end until the checker flag falls.
Al Sr. has won more money at Indy than anyone else. He's led 595 laps at Indy, only 18 short of the record. He's finished in the top 5 10 times. He is the man, I'm sure, of those remaining on the track that Guerrero least wants to see chasing him in this situation. Here comes Roberto. Let's watch the pit stop.
All right, this will be interesting to see, Jim. They better not make mistakes now. He has a chance of winning this race. Now's the important time. Everything in racing comes down to the very last part.
Now there's second place, Al Unser Sr., and he is still out on the track, remember, as Guerrero makes the pit stop.
No adjustments for Roberto so far.
The critical thing here for Roberto to get out of the pits before Al Sr. makes it back around on the front straight.
Al Sr. is going down the back stretch. Now he's going into turn 3. You know that's in Roberto's mind. This pit stop is dragging on there.
Kill the engine. Roberto killed the engine.
Stalled it.
This is really going to change the outcome of this race. Roberto's engine, he's got it going. Off, Jim.
They're going to be very close. They're going to be very close. Here's on turn 4 in the front straight. He's going to pass him, I think.
Yeah, it's going. It's stalled again. Al Unser Sr. takes
the lead in the Indianapolis 500. You've got 18 laps to go. This man has won it 3 times already in his career. He's 47 years old. He didn't have a ride until 2 weeks ago, and now Guerrero has had a taste of Andretti luck.
The crowd is going wild. They have to pull Roberto back if he goes 1 pit stop too far. It's even a lap penalty, if I remember right here. Al now is on the defensive. He must operate totally different. He's not chasing anybody. They're chasing him.
He is the coolest head on the track.
And what do you think A.J. Foyt is thinking back in his darkened garage right now?
He is counting up those little differences between his record and Al Unser Sr.'s, and he might be recognizing
All
that
right,
it's
Roberto's
pretty
underway
doggone
again,
close.
Jim. Sorry to interrupt.
Yeah, but you're right.
Guerrero is now back at speed, leaving the pits. You see him there. But there goes Al going by him, so he is now a full lap down, and obviously he saw Al flash by. He knows the situation. There's no chance of overcoming that deficit through sheer speed whatsoever, so he is now in the position that Al was in before.
This is all within the space of a few miles. Andretti, who had controlled the race all day, suddenly pulling down to the apron. Guerrero taking the lead. Guerrero passing Unser Sr. to go a lap up. Coming in for the routine pit stop, the last one in the race. Stalling the car. And Al Unser Sr. taking advantage of the opportunity to move into the lead. All he's got to do now is finish cleanly.
Jim, I still want to caution everybody. This is the Indianapolis 500. You can't tell what's going to happen. We've had an extremely exciting race, especially at the last year. More action than you can believe. But Al is on the defensive. He must keep everything together, but he can do it.
He could have had even more than 4 wins. He was second in 1983. There's Mario finally coming back out into the race. He's going to finish it, perhaps, but only as an also-ran today. Unser Sr. was second behind Tom Sneva in 83. He was in the hunt in the last 10 laps. His son, Al Unser Jr., tried to block Sneva, or at least create some dirty air for him to give him a chance to win. It didn't quite pay off.
Al Jr. is in 4th place. We could have a good Unser day here before we're through.
I think you've already had a pretty good Unser day, Bobby.
And the car right now that Big Al is following is the rookie car of Fabricio Barbazza, who is now 3rd. Barbazza having one of the greatest runs by a rookie that we've seen in recent years.
Since Roberto Guerrero in 1984. All right, we've got 15 laps to go. We're going to go to commercial one more time. And when we come back, we're going to bring you the finish of Al Unser's bid for a 4th Indy 500 title. Back live, and you look from overhead at the yellow car, carrying what is now the story of the day, and perhaps to a certain degree the story of the decade at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. 47-year-old Al Unser Sr. was without a ride in this race until 2 weeks ago. He was given the car that Danny and Gaius crashed, riding under the colors of Penske Racing. And now, Al Unser Sr. is in position to win a 4th Indianapolis 500 title, which would tie him with A.J. Foyt as the only 2 men ever to accomplish that. Let's go now with Al Troutwig.
Jim, it's quite a scene down here in the Al Unser Sr. pit. Rick Mears and Danny Sullivan out of the race. That looks strange enough, but they're all trying to help Roger Penske get the attention of USAC to blue flag car number 12, the car of Barbazza. They think that he is interfering with the progress of Al Unser Sr. In the meantime, Karen, Al Unser Sr.'s wife, is really agonizing over these past 2 laps. You can see the tension in her face without looking very hard. Back to you.
It's a very good point, Al Troutwig. As you look at the red car of Barbazza in front of Al Unser Sr., he has been moving all over the track to obstruct Unser Sr. and thereby lessening some of the distance between Unser Sr. and the 2 men chasing him, one of which is Guerrero, the other of which is Barbazza. Barbazza is 2 laps down. Guerrero is 1 lap down. Remember, Guerrero would have to pass Unser twice within these closing laps in order to get back into the lead. We've got 11 laps to go.
Bobby, when you won the last race you won here back in 81, you became the oldest man ever to win the Indianapolis 500. If your brother hangs on and wins it today, he would displace you from that honor by a matter of a few months.
Sam,
what do you make of that?
If that happens, I'll just be the happiest brother in the world.
Great. What do you think he is feeling right now, given your intimate relationship through the years? What's in his mind?
He's trying to make a decision right now what to do with Barbazza, whether to go for a pass and get out of a danger area or whether to possibly create a danger area by trying to go by. He can't make up his mind. Fabricio's holding him back, but he just doesn't know what to do. Plus, he's got Roberto behind him.
But he's got a lap lead. He's not going to take any chances at all going by Barbazza.
Well, Jim, it's really more of a more of a case about whether you can have dirty air, the guy getting a wreck in front of you, something like that. That's where the problem comes in.
What an emotional weekend this is going to have to be for the Unser family. Friday night, Bobby Unser's son, Robbie Unser, was injured in an automobile race here. As you see, Guerrero unlapping himself. He's now back on the lead lap with Unser, and we've got 9 laps to go, but let me pick it up again. Your son, Robbie, broke his leg Friday night and is having a little bit of a tough go of it right now at Methodist Hospital. You've got your brother in the lead with less than 9 laps to go, trying to win for the 4th time. Your nephew is just 3 cars behind him in 4th place, and you're working the Indianapolis 500 for an announcer, or as an announcer for the first time. How hard is it now for you to maintain your concentration in these last 9 laps?
Yeah, it's hard. I've got the shakes, as you can tell right now. I'm beyond myself. It's almost as if I was doing this race myself, and Al just did a good thing by letting Roberto go by. That's a professional thing. He should have let him go. He needs to stay away from everybody and make it to the finish.
Bobby, you never felt this way when you were on the track racing against him and he was winning, did you?
No, and if I was there today, I wouldn't be this way either.
So Al Jr., though, what is he thinking? He roots for his father.
Well, he is rooting for him now. Little Al is running good. He's in 4th place. But I guarantee you that he's really pulling for Daddy right now. Now we have a yellow flag.
Yellow flag with 8 laps to go. It's Mario Andretti who has gone down into the infield.
This is not bad news for Al. This is good news. He can let the car get down, cool everything off, burn away a few laps under the yellow. This can't hurt anything.
8 laps to go, so there won't be many laps left under the green when we come back after this yellow. Well, let's try to cover all the little details. This is a 1986 March Cosworth car that Al Unser Sr. is driving. It is a year-old car. In a long time since a year-old car won the Indianapolis 500, and that says something about the present state of technology in the sport. A little bit of a state of flux there. But that is just the mechanical story. The human story is so much bigger and so much more compelling, and it all centers on that man, a quiet, very private man who lives in Albuquerque, New Mexico, just across the road from his brother on a plot of land that your father bought for the family a long time ago. He's a man who does not mingle as gregariously in some ways as a lot of other people in the sport do, but I'm sure that he has very strong feelings about what is about to happen to him right here.
Well, he's in good shape right now, Jim. He's got Johnny Rutherford right behind him. The pack will go around and get behind him. Unless he has a mechanical problem, Al will get by the finish now. He'll be all right.
Try to hang in here, Bobby. We've only got 6 laps to go. You know, it's just 2 weeks ago that Al Unser was riding his bike around the garage area here, still hoping for a ride. The only ride he had was a small 2-wheel bike. Circumstances, Danny Ungaias had a crash in the 3rd Penske car, was badly concussed, could not come back and drive that car. Roger Penske went back to a man who has done so much for him in the past, including winning the national championship just 2 years ago. And so Al Unser now sits at the wheel of the car in this race, which is the envy of everyone else. And isn't it ironic that the man who sits behind him, and we haven't given him a call all day, is Johnny Rutherford, another 3-time winner who, if he were in the hunt and he thought he had a good chance, would have been looking for a 4th victory today. Johnny Rutherford now watching as the man ahead of him proceeds toward a big plateau in Indianapolis history. You pointed out that he didn't have a ride. He had offers of cars, as you look at Guerrero flying around trying to make up a little bit of distance under the yellow flag. He had offers of cars, but he said that he would only take something good, something that had a chance to win the race.
Well, and there aren't very many cars he could have picked from. Most of the cars were gone, and it's because of Danny Ungaias' accident that opened this ride up for Al, Jim, and he was very thankful for that, but he felt sorry for Danny. Of course, it was a head injury. Otherwise, Danny would have been in this car.
Of course, when he won the championship, I say the IndyCar World Series Racing Championship a couple of years ago, that was an opportunity which was opened up to him by an injury to Rick Mears, and he went out of his way to honor Mears for that by seeing to it that Mears carried the number 1 the following year.
Yes, he did, and Al could, ironically, be the national champion again this year. We don't predict things till they're over with, but Al, like I said earlier, hasn't slowed down, and today, obviously, is in pretty good shape.
Al is not a fast qualifier. In 22 Indy 500s, he's been on the front row only 3 times, but he's won 3 times and finished second 3 times.
Now, I mentioned earlier, I said 6 laps to go. I was 1 lap ahead of myself, but now there are 5 laps to go. Al Unser Jr. is the car directly in front of that of Roberto Guerrero. And this harkens us back to 1983 when in a similar situation, Al Jr. tried to protect his dad from Tom Sneva. Is there anything he can do when they come back green to help make sure that his dad will win this race?
Jim, he really doesn't have to. There's nothing that's really necessary right now. Johnny Rutherford is right behind Al. Johnny's a good driver. Johnny knows what the situation is. There's nothing to go for. Al just got to be out there running clean air, take care of his car, make sure he doesn't break the transmission when he comes down for the restart. Little things like that are important, you know.
There's little Al, and you can see he's just a few cars behind Al Sr. You get a look at Guerrero, the car that is easy to spot, even in the wide shot, right there on the right of the screen. The big orange number 4. It looks like a bomb about to explode. I'll tell you, that car looks fast even when it's sitting still in the garage. And we are now told that Guerrero's crew has told Roberto to just cool it. And they are now telling him, we are told, and we don't know for certain that it's true, that second is better than blowing it. All right, the green flag is going to come out, and you're going to have 4 laps to go. So the Indianapolis 500 is now the Indianapolis 10 for Al Unser Sr. as he tries to win it for a 4th time with 4 laps to go.
He's pulling away, Jim. He's in good shape. The transmission went through the last shifting it should do until the end. That's, thank God that went through good.
Do you think Guerrero is thinking to himself right now, I blew this race for myself, I stalled it leaving the pits?
Yes, Sam, but you know, as we talked earlier, we watched Mario as an example miss a lot of pit stops through his career. Pit stops meaning come in and miss the whole pit. So Roberto made a mistake. He did that all last year. As we talked earlier, we really thought he was over that this year and on the road to good recovery.
When he won at Phoenix a month ago and broke through the window in a sense because after being on the threshold for a few years, he won his first IndyCar event. He got help when Bobby Rahal stalled his car out in the pits on the last sequence of pit stops.
And even the very best are not immune to problems in the pits. Your brother Al, just 2 years ago, ran over his air hose going out of the pit and lost a hole, was penalized a lap, which cost him a chance at a last lap possibility.
Well, he finished 1 lap down. If he hadn't run over the air hose, he'd have been on the lead lap at the end and challenging Danny Sullivan for the victory. Now Sullivan stands in Al Unser's pit and roots for his teammate to win the Indy 500.
Can you just imagine how Roger Penske is feeling now? He absolutely winning this race. No idea that Al Unser would be driving for us. Now, Al Unser is just could possibly win this race for him. Just 2 laps to go, Jim.
He won it in 1970 racing for Parnelli Jones. Again in 1971, he was the last man to repeat. He won it in a chaparral in 1978. He has not won it in 9 years, but he was 2nd in 83, 5th in 82, 3rd in 84, 4th in 85. And now it looks like he's going to add 1st in 1987.
And with that incredible record behind him, Jim, still, when I stood next to Al when he went out to qualify and took this car in the show 2 weeks ago, as he put his earpieces in, you see him coming up to 1 lap, his hands are shaking so badly, he could barely get his earpieces in. So no one is ever immune to the pressures of this place, and I don't think on this last lap that he's immune to it either in that cockpit. Do you?
Aaron doesn't want to look. Karen doesn't want to look.
Face, that tells you the story. She just crossed her fingers, she got everything crossed. She just praying to God that he can make it around the rest of this last remaining lap.
He's in the short chute between turns 1 and 2.
Going down
the back stretch. Now he's into turn 3.
He can coast from there, right? Just about.
When he comes off at turn 4, he could slide across.
That's Chris Mears, Rick Mears' wife, hugging Karen. And now here it is. Your brother, Al Unser, joins A.J. Foyt as one of only 2 men ever to win the Indianapolis 500 4 times in his life.
That is fabulous. That is absolutely fabulous. I just cannot believe it.
Bobby, congratulations. That is simply fantastic.
Thank you. I mean, this is great. This has been a day. This makes up for Robbie getting his leg broken.
Well, I'm sure Robbie's watching watching right now. There's a television in that hospital room, we hope.
Yes, he is. Well, he's not watching TV, but he's listening to the radio.
Oh, that's right. He's listening to the radio and listening to Paul Page call this race on the radio as this telecast is blacked out until later this evening in Indiana. And the crowd now stands and responds for the man who can be called, certainly, one of the two greatest race car drivers ever in terms of his record in the Indianapolis 500. Rutherford next to him. You have to assume they exchanged a wave somewhere. And there's Little Al. Little Al pulls up next to his dad.
Happy for his father right now, guarantee you.
Little Al hasn't won yet, but this may not be the last Unser victory by any means in the Indy 500.
Oh, I don't think it will be, but the important thing is we have a four-time winner in the Unser family. Al's done a marvelous job today, especially considering he came here without a car to drive.
Bobby, tell me honestly, as the race began, did you think this was possible?
Sam, I knew it was possible because, not necessarily about Al, but of several of the guys that have a lot of time here. We expected the race to have a lot of problems today. The weather helped it not have so many problems. So we all said, you and Jim and I all agreed that experience would probably prevail today, and it did.
Yes, it did. Well, the Unser family has 7 victories now. No family certainly has ever meant as much to this race. Your mom, for years, was a fixture here with her chili in the garage. And Jack Arute is standing by now to talk to what we have to assume is an extremely happy man.
Jim Lampley, this is history. Joining A.J. Foyt as a 4-time winner of the Indianapolis 500 is Al Unser Sr., trying to get his car moved up properly, trying to get out of the cockpit. He's still got his helmet on. You can see the wheel has been dislodged. He's got to get the top-off valve. It's just pandemonium here. He just wants to get out of the car so badly. They're trying to yank it off. There we go. Just wants to get up, get out, get the congratulations. Roger, fantastic. Congratulations. What a wonderful win.
Well, it's great for Al. He did a great job. We hung in there. That's great.
Al's getting his helmet off. His wife Karen is here, ready with the congratulations. What a terrific story. In so much as on May 3rd, this man didn't even have a ride for the Indianapolis 500. And now Al getting the kiss from his wife. Al, congratulations. 4 times. The Indy 500 is yours. How does it feel, buddy?
I tell you what, it's hard to believe. It's something that, you know, you want to dream about. And, you know, it just seems that, you know, it wouldn't come true because of all the problems. And, of course, I still want to say Danny Sullivan, or Danny Angias, rather, I feel for him because this should be his ride. That's the way it goes.
What were your thoughts, though, when at first it looked like you were going to be a solid third, then it was a solid second, and then all of a sudden, lo and behold, a solid first was within your grasp?
Well, I'll tell you what, Lady Luck has to run in your way sometime, and this is one of them.
Your brother Bobby called the race, and he was just a basket case up there for the last lap. Do you want to say anything to him?
Well, I'll tell you what, Bobby, I'm a basket case, too.
Well, we're all talk to you right here.
Bobby, go ahead. You got a chance now to talk to your brother.
Al, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you, Bobby.
I just want you to know the family's proud of you. That was neat.
I'll tell you what, it's a great feeling. It really is, Bobby, and as you know, and I'm glad we're here.
Well, the Unsers have a 4-time winner.
Back here. As Al plays, I think, a little history here, getting an interview with his brother. Everybody getting the congratulations, the customary milk. But one thing, Al, what about your feelings? When do you think it'll all hit you? Because it really is something that'll take a few days, isn't it?
Well, I'll tell you, yes, it will, because, you know, I had my doubts going into this show, and I knew I had a good car, and we knew that, you know, that the team was there, and, of course, Cummins for sponsoring me in Pennzoil and Hertz and all of them. It's just a great feeling. And of course, Goodyear, I didn't have any problems all day with tires, even though they're the big, you know, deal about them. But I have no problems whatsoever.
You alluded to the fact that you feel bad for your teammate, the guy that was supposed to drive this car, Danny Angias. Is there anything that you may be saying to him when you get a chance to chat with him?
No, I haven't had a chance, but I would, you know, like to say, Danny, that this should be yours.
Well, that's the story from Victory Lane as far as Al Unser Sr. is concerned. He is the 4-time winner of the Indianapolis 500, now taking that swig of milk and about to be awarded the Borg-Warner Trophy, which is so emblematic of victory here. 4 times. His face will be on it, and it's just fantastic down here. Trying to get a word maybe with Roger Penske, who's over on the other side. Now they're going to put the wreath on him, getting all the congratulations, and it's just hard to fathom that this man came here without a ride just a couple of days ago. I mean, just about May 4th, and he absolutely didn't have a ride, and then lo and behold, he gets the victory. Let's go back up to the tower.
Jack, there was another Unser brother, Jerry Unser, who raced here before Bobby or Al ever did. And let's remember him, too, right now, because he's watching from somewhere up above.
He'd certainly be happy today, I promise.
And now we're going to look in slow motion, Bobby, from our race cam in Al Unser Jr.'s car at the scene on the flag lap as Al Unser Jr. moved up next to his dad to offer his special congratulations for a job well done.
Earn money just for walking on the... How good we really are.
This is KTVI, Channel 2, St. Louis.
The Indianapolis 500 is being brought to you by Chevy, the heartbeat of America, today's Chevrolet. By Goodyear Tire and Rubber Company. No matter how far you go, Goodyear takes you home. And by the Kellogg Company, maker of Kellogg's Frosted Flakes, Tony's Flakes of Corn with a sweet frosting.
Jerry Gaffen's back with second place runner Roberto Guerrero. Roberto, had to be one of the biggest disappointments in your life. What did you think when you stalled that engine on pit road?
Well, obviously I wanted to die, and it's a shame. You know, I came in the pits and I couldn't get the car out of gear, so I knew we were having a little bit of trouble. I was hoping we get it done as soon as possible, and but when the car dropped, the engine just died. So it's you know, disappointing. But we're leading the championship. We have to look to the rest of the year, and you know, we were in good shape.
We got reports that the crew there at the last 4 or 5 laps just told you to cool it, take second place, and be happy with that. Is that true?
Well, they may have said that, but I wasn't going for it. I mean, I was trying as hard as I could. I passed a few cars, but I knew it was a difficult task. It's very difficult to pass with the turbulence, and I just gave it my best, that's for sure.
Your son here, 20-month-old Marco, you want him to be a race driver someday and go through what you just went through today emotionally?
Well, I mean, that will obviously be up to him, but you know, today was tough. At the same time, a second place is a second place, and you know, we have to still be happy with what we've done.
Okay, Roberto Guerrero, obviously a little disappointed with second, but still, he's leading the points championships and looks ahead. Back upstairs to Jim Lampley.
All right, thank you very much, Jerry Gappens. And we take an unofficial look at the top 6 finishers. Unser Sr., Guerrero, Barbatza, a rookie, Unser Jr., Gary Bettenhausen, Dick Simon. We'll be back right after this. Well, we bring you back live to the Indianapolis Motor Speedway, where, once again, in case you've just joined us today, Al Unser Sr., in a dramatic late lap run, has won his 4th Indianapolis 500 to become only the 2nd man ever to do that, joining A.J. Foyt. It was a race which Mario Andretti led most of the way and appeared to have clearly in hand, leading by more than a lap most of the way until his freakish bad luck string, which has now lasted 18 years, struck once again with just about 50 miles to go in the race. And then in the closing laps, it appeared that Roberto Guerrero was in control, leading by a lap, and was headed for a victory before he inexplicably stalled his car out on a pit stop. They had difficulty getting it going, and suddenly there was Al Unser at age 47, headed for that 4th victory. You've heard of the old saying, not a dry eye in the house. At the end of the race, there was not a dry eye in the booth. We talk about turbulence on the track. There was certainly turbulence in the heart of our newest expert commentator, Bobby Unser. But before Bobby gets a final chance to comment on his brother's triumph, let's go once again to Sam Posey and back to the story you began the day with, Sam. Mario, once again, appeared in position to break that long streak, and it didn't happen.
Yeah, and for every triumph, there has to be a disaster. And what I only hope in the next few years is that, I mean, I think Mario really thought he was going to win this one. I think he was poised to do something. And now it is almost as if this luck thing has become a sort of strange eagle that sits on his shoulder. And I hope that it won't cause him to become discouraged and depressed that it would affect his future performances. I'm sure it won't, and yet I think today, of all the defeats here that Mario has had, perhaps this will be the most painful.
And ironically, at age 47, he is a direct contemporary of the man who benefited from his bad luck. And here is the spectator who enjoyed it most. Bobby, what will history say about your brother?
They're going to say Al's a great race driver. He always has been. And today's race was a good race. Mario did lead an awful lot of it. He totally dominated it. But by the same token, Roberto Guerrero was quick. We had a lot of fast cars. We had very few accidents, no bad accidents. It came out a lot better. We didn't have the heat. It just came out a lot better than we anticipated in the very beginning. We were all three of us a little bit worried, if you remember. So I just think it's really neat. I've never seen such a storybook affair for a family as it's been for the Unser family today.
Very quickly, is there something to be said for playing a waiting game in this race, and does your brother have more of the temperament to do that than perhaps anyone else?
Yes, he does have, and Al has always been a very shrewd and very smart race driver, and I wonder sometimes, like if I would have been in Al's shoes, I'm not too sure that I wouldn't have pushed it a little bit harder and possibly even broke the car. The important thing is he does know how to win, and he did win again.
Congratulations again to the whole Unser family. It was heartwarming for us to share in this story with you. The results of this race don't become official until 8 o'clock tomorrow morning. But for now, it looks as though Al Unser has won it. Jim McKay will be back with a final word right after this.
Jet-set spectators fill the streets of Monaco in the most glamorous race on the Grand Prix circuit. High speeds and hairpin turns fill this demanding course as Formula One racers go all out in this ultimate driving test. Chrysler presents the Grand Prix of Monaco next Sunday on ABC Sports.
The race summary then, 11 of 33 cars running. Number of leaders 4, 10 lead changes, 10 yellows. The average speed, the fourth fastest in history. You see the time of the race there, just over 3 hours. The winner, winning his fourth Indianapolis 500, Al Unser Sr. We have a report that has not been confirmed for us by the Speedway, but it has been put out by the Associated Press. We are told that a spectator was killed here today when a tire flew off Tony Bettenhausen's car into the crowd. That is unconfirmed now. It has gone out on the wire service, so we feel we should tell you that much about it. Obviously, our people are trying to find out exactly now. Let's go down to Al Troutwig with Hard Luck Mario Andretti.
Thank you, Jim. Mario, what kinds of thoughts have you been able to accumulate in your mind after talking to your crew and thinking about what happened to you today?
Well, we're just trying to figure out what actually did happen. It looks like the fuel system pitched on us all of a sudden. We're just out of the blue. Everything was working just absolutely beautiful. I mean, the car was perfect. And just all of a sudden between 3 and 4, I felt a backfire through the system, and that was that. So when I come in to try to start it, there was just fuel pouring out of it. So just a fuel management system that pitched.
There must have been a moment today when you had your hands on the wheel and you said to yourself, it feels like this is mine today.
Well, it felt as good as I ever had here. The car was perfect. It's an absolute tribute to the crew. They gave me a perfect car today, and I don't think that anyone could have done anything with us as long as everything was running. And that Chevy engine was running just absolutely beautiful. It's not the fault of the engine. It's just accessories that went, and it's a shame.
Mario, thank you for taking the time to talk to us. To Jim McKay.
Well, you would have to say that the winners here today were Lady Luck and Father Time. Lady Luck, of course, and Father Time, the experience and the age of Al Unser Sr., the oldest winner in the history of the Indianapolis 500. As for the others, let's take a look at the field here. Roberto Guerrero had to learn something when he stalled his car coming out of the pit. A great rookie race for Barbaza, finishing third. Here are some of the other finishers. Andretti finished ninth, as you saw. Danny Sullivan 13th, all unofficial, by the way. And there you see Gordon Johncock down in 22nd. A.J. Foyt dropped out. He finished 19th. Davy Jones, his protege, was down there. And the last finisher, George Snyder, he dropped out on the first lap. So that is the story from the Indianapolis Motor Speedway on a beautiful May afternoon. The winner again, Al Unser Sr. The Indianapolis 500 has been brought to you by Chevy, the heartbeat of America, today's Chevrolet. And by Miller Lite. For great taste, there's only one light beer. The Indianapolis 500 has been produced by Bob Goodrich and Ken Wolf, and directed by Larry Cam and Roger Goodman. Our technical directors were Werner Gunther and John Fider. The associate producer, Ned Simon. And the associate director, Norm Samet, David Kiviat, Jeff Cohan, and Vince Sedario. And now you're looking at the names of the men and women who comprise our technical staff here at Indianapolis and who have excelled their previous efforts yet again. Thanks very much. Saturday on ABC's Wide World of Sports, Mike Tyson, the youngest fighter ever to capture the heavyweight title, takes a look back at some of boxing history's great heavyweight champions. Plus same-day coverage of the mini marathon from New York City. Also, ABC's Wide World of Sports Athlete of the Week Award. It all begins at 4:30 Eastern and Pacific, 3:30 Central, Saturday on ABC Sports. This has been a presentation of ABC Sports, recognized around the world as the leader in sports television.